Alpha examines issues of artificial intelligence from the viewpoint of established Christian teaching on the soul and human existence in the world. It addresses the existence of God, and whether humans have free will or are nothing more than human automata. The main character in Alpha is a priest employed by the Vatican as a sort of troubleshooter. An all-knowing computer appears to have an independent life of its own, an abomination for those who believe in a supreme creator. Father Marquez is sent to interrogate Alpha to decide whether or not it can be allowed to exist. During their conversations, Marquez finds out far more than he expects about both Alpha and, much more disturbingly, himself.
Alpha by Mike Walker, with David Calder as Father Marquez and Sarah Jane Home as Alpha.
Father Robert Marquez, priest, servant of God. I think I am. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. I am Father Robert Marquez, priest, servant of God. And in a few hours, tonight or before the dawn tomorrow, I will commit murder. And I believe that in doing so I will be damned. And yet, even in this hell there must be some hope for me. How did it begin? Nothing certain. Time, place. Oh, come on, priest, think. Rome, 2022, last May. St. Peter's, was that it? The girl. Was she always there, from the beginning?
Sorry. I didn't mean...
What are you doing?
I wasn't going to... I didn't mean to give you a surprise.
Oh, yeah, it's okay. It's all right. It's all right.
You jumped like a frog, you know. I'm sorry, but you did.
Like a frog?
Just like a frog. Except you didn't...
I didn't.
Croak. I must go.
No, wait.
I shouldn't be here, really.
This is
really.
one of God's places, special places. If you want to be here, then you should. If you need to be.
No, I'm sorry. I must go.
You know, in my country where I grew up, sometimes in the evening, at certain times of the year, all the frogs along the river begin to croak at the same time.
Huh?
Yes. As the sun goes down, they gather. It's a very big river, and there's an awful lot of frogs.
Hundreds.
Thousands. Thousands upon thousands. And as it gets dark, they croak. Ribbit. 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 And then when the sun's gone and the stars are up and the night begins to get cold, they stop. And when they aren't there anymore, you can almost hear the world turning in the silence.
And then?
Everything comes back to life. And all the noises that are usually there, why, there they are again. So what do they call you, little one?
Sophia.
Sophia. Means wisdom.
Are you really a priest?
I really am a priest. But I don't actually work here. Well, I mean, I do. I live in Rome, but I...
But you're really a frog.
Yes. Yes. I hop off all around the world to deal with problems. All sorts of problems that the Holy Father wants to know about, so he can decide what to do.
Are they big problems?
Some of them are, Sophia.
Are they really, really big problems?
Yes, a few. Is that what your problem is?
I have to go now.
Oh, wait, Sophia.
I really have to go. I'm sorry.
Sophia. Was she part of it? Strange child. Strange meeting. I don't know. Things aren't so straight anymore. When priests kill and the killers preach. Time. It'll always get you in the end. Or the beginning. The beginning. New Vatican City, Cardinal Corelli's office.
Well, Robert, how are you?
Fine, I guess.
I am your confessor, Robert.
No, I am not fine.
You went on a spiritual retreat, 2 weeks with the Jesuits. That did not help at all?
I meditated, I prayed. I looked for him and he wasn't there.
You couldn't find him, or he was not there?
No. I can't believe that God wasn't there, not being in the business we are.
You should get out of the job. Take time off.
I have.
And?
You can't unring a bell. What I have done, I have done. I can't wipe it out.
Oh, nothing so very bad.
The mission to the poor in Sao Paulo. I shut them down. Scattered the congregation. Policemen.
The Holy Father ruled quite clearly they were in mortal error. There was no choice.
Bishop Mkugi in Central Africa. Was he in error with his crusade?
Crusaders with snip guns. They were an army, not a religion.
I've done things in the name of the church that I would not have done in my own name.
We take a vow, Robert, those of us who serve Mother Church in our particular office. Obedience. Not self-will, not ego, not my will, but thy will be done. God's will.
How can I know it is his will when he'll no longer...
You cannot, Robert. That is faith. Thank you, sister. Just leave it there. We'll pour.
Eminence?
Robert, we have a problem.
Yes?
I spent yesterday with the Imam Mahmoud al-Haq. This is, thank you, not our problem alone. I should emphasize this.
Not our problem alone, but...
The leaders, the spiritual leaders of the Muslim and Hindu, the Jewish faiths, well, it is a consensus of opinion.
That we should solve this problem?
Look at this problem. Consider possible solutions in the light of our knowledge.
You've done this?
A group of us have considered, thought deeply, but come to no conclusion as yet. Coffee all right?
Oh. Yes, yes. Thank you. What do you want me to do, Eminence?
To do? Nothing as yet. No, not to do, but to observe, consider, use your experience and perhaps, well...
I don't understand. You talked about a rest, time off.
One last task, Roberto. The Holy Father asks it of you. I ask it.
Well, what else would I do?
You will be flying to Los Angeles tomorrow.
And what am I to do? my mission.
Have you ever considered, Robert, the underlying assumptions that we make as human beings, the very simple things, that the sun will rise tomorrow morning, that there is a world outside of our immediate consciousness, that one day San Giorno will get beyond the first round of the Euro Cup?
It was a lamentable performance. I was there.
That we are, apart from our Lord, alone, the only conscious beings in our universe?
Yes.
What if we are not alone, Robert?
Little green men from outer space. It's wish fulfillment, hysteria, loss of faith, it's whatever.
Not out there. Right here, where we live. What if we are no longer alone? Catch your plane. There will be information waiting at the airport. A suite is booked at the LA Hilton. Keep in touch with me, Robert. I want to know everything that happens. Everything.
But, Eminence, you haven't told me anything.
You will find out. And when you do, you will decide how to act. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Eminence. Thank you, Eminence. That's what I said. Of course, I didn't have the faintest idea what I was saying. I had a job to do. I guess that was good. I didn't have to think about a reason for doing what I did. There was no reason. I was running on default. Instinct. Just a machine. I guess that's what they knew. I was ready for this job because I was a machine. This was the job that I had been waiting for all along. I caught the Clipper out of Rome. First class, of course. I had time to slip the plasma slug in the player and receive my briefing.
Father Marquez, your contact in Los Angeles will be Dr. Thomas Wollongong. He and his colleague, Dr. Katerina Yankovic, have been instructed to offer you any and all facilities you may need. Vatican Security has created a couple of dossiers for you to look through before you meet. I think that once you become familiar with the situation there in Los Angeles, you will find, given the general state of the world, the fragile peace, I think you'll find that the choices become both clear and inevitable. It is, after all, a case of conscience. End.
The stuff on Yankovic and Wollongong was pretty thin. She was 32, a Serb. Good degrees from Berlin and MIT. He was 28. Degrees from Melbourne and Vienna. Their field was AI, artificial intelligence. Whatever that was. Computers, I guessed. Very advanced computers. Highly complex systems. So what had they done? Why was I on my way to see them? I had lived with a sense of dread for many years, but I had never felt it so close. I could almost touch it that day as we came into Los Angeles. There was no one there to meet me, so I got a cab to the hotel. Hello? Hello? Is this reception? Is there somebody there? Hello? Yes, what do you want?
Hello? Is that Dr. Roberto Marquez?
Oh, yes.
This is Katerina Yankovic from the Institute.
Yes, Dr. Yankovic. Sorry. Did you just call?
No.
Ah. Well, I had a call, that's all.
How was your flight, Dr. Marquez? You are a doctor as well as a priest, I think.
Yes, I am.
Anyway, Tom Wollongong and I wondered if you'd eaten.
Well, airline meals, you know.
I have an apartment. Why don't we meet there?
Well, maybe a restaurant if you want to eat.
Oh, I'll cook. I to cook. Didn't the dossier tell you that?
Sorry, no.
Maple and Harrison, number 334, top floor, about 7. Oh, is that all right?
All right.
It being our territory.
Please, Doctor, look, Look, I'm just here to look and learn.
7, then. Bye, Dr. Marquez.
She sounded perfectly pleasant, and I knew she didn't like me one little bit. But then she had the advantage of me. She knew why I was here. Reception. Give me a wake-up call in 3 hours. And order a cab for 6:30. Yeah, thank you. I lay down and I went to sleep. At least I went to that place where I used to sleep before. Now, whatever I found there, it wasn't rest.
Oh, come in, Dr. Marquez.
Thank you.
You were held up.
The National Guard was on the street.
This is my colleague, Dr. Tom Wollongong.
Yeah, hi there, Father.
Hello.
Been looking forward to meeting you. Of course, I'm not the only one.
A drink? Do you drink?
Well, only alcohol. Well, I've looked forward to meeting both of you. Well, I suppose I have anyway. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't quite mean it like that.
Beer, wine...
Oh, beer's fine.
Well, you can't really expect us to be too happy about it.
Dr. Yankovic, as far as I know, as far as I'm concerned, this is strictly an exploratory... I've been asked by
By your bosses,
Cardinal Corelli.
who coordinates the World Faith Commission.
Here you go, Father. I hope you don't mind it cold.
He does, like most of us, what he's told.
What he's told?
Yes. By the commission members, Hindus, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists. Look, I don't have to go on, do I? It's a committee, that's all. I'm sorry. Thank you, Dr. Wollongong.
No, Tom, please.
Oh, this beer's fine. It's very welcome.
Cheers.
Shall we eat? Is that okay with you? It's a tuna stew. Organic tuna, of course. In your honour, Dr. Marquez, with a chili and tomato sauce.
Chilies don't scare me. I grew up in Nicaragua.
Well, you'd never know it from the accent.
Well,
Let's go through, shall we? We don't want this to get cold.
I say, this looks good.
So how much do you know?
Well, I know that my boss told me we're not alone anymore.
Do you know what that means?
I was told no more. I can speculate as well as the next man, but I don't think speculation is going to be of much help.
You're a man of action, aren't you?
I like to think I'm also a man of contemplation.
Oh, we know who you are. Rome's button man. You put anyone or anything that His Holiness doesn't like out of business permanently.
Oh, for God's sake.
Oh, no, not that you get your own hands messy. And now you're working for the whole damn lot of them, the community of faith. And we have no choice.
Enough,
We have
all
no
right?
choice but to
You are
cooperate
stepping
with
over
you.
the line.
Say no, and our funds are cut.
Katerina, we talked about this.
How do you think that makes us feel?
Look, sorry.
I really know very little, Dr. Yankovic. Why don't you start by telling me something about your work? That is why we are here. So tell me why we are no longer alone. And they did. A case of, well, consciousness. Marquez. Hello? This is Marquez, room 7701.
Father Marquez.
Oh, Your Eminence.
Well, Father?
I saw Doctors Yankovic and Wollongong this evening. I had dinner with them.
At the university?
No, Eminence. at Dr. Yankovic's apartment. We ate tuna with a chili and tomato sauce. Organic tuna, of course.
What are you talking about, Robert? Dinner?
Well,
How did they seem, these two scientists?
angry. They felt that we were not competent to judge their work.
If not us, then who? The god of quantum physics, perhaps?
They told me tonight what it is they've made.
And?
It cannot be so. That's what I told them.
And?
Tomorrow, they will show me that it can. So they say.
Yes, and even so, it cannot be. Do they have a name for this project?
They call it Alpha, because it's the first.
Huh? They seem to have a taste for blasphemy, these people.
Eminence, why didn't you tell me before I left?
Are you sure I didn't, Father? Perhaps you didn't listen. I will expect your call tomorrow. The committee will not want this matter to remain unresolved for longer than it must. Good night, Father.
No blessing. I understood the language. Unresolved. I had resolved things before, but nothing like this. I lay down on my bed and listened to the night outside. I went to that place where the nightmares waited. Yes.
Good morning, Father Marquez. This is your wake-up call.
Wake? What? But it's, wait, 6:30. I thought I said, I said 7:15.
I think you'll find the freeways emptier. Your taxi will make better time. You can catch breakfast at the university.
What kind of hotel is this?
Your car will be at reception in 30 minutes. If you ask the driver to stop at St. Ignatius, you'll find an early mass. It was nice talking to you, Father. We'll speak again soon.
Oh, what the hell was all that about? Oh. I showered, dressed, packed some stuff. Tools of my trade. Aquinas, St. Augustine, Beretta 50-shot auto, plasma recorder. Yes?
Good morning. Your morning call, sir. Would you care for breakfast in your room?
No. No breakfast. Thank you.
Yeah, we're just down at the end here. It's a sterile area.
Intellectual apartheid.
I had an odd call this morning.
This is L.A. You get a lot of strange calls here, Father.
No, it wasn't like that.
Oh, will you come through, please? We don't like to leave the door open too long.
Straight as the gate and narrow the way. Now, this call was different. He wasn't a nut.
Oh, isn't that a value judgment?
Oh. Well, it's smaller than I thought. Sorry, your lab. Somehow I imagined...
Well, what? Infinite space? Of course, Father, as you know, quantum physics tells us that within smallest particles, like the quark, time actually bends back on itself in a series of...
You're confusing the Father, Tom.
What's that?
Good morning, Father Marquez.
What?
What Tom is saying is that time is no different to any other material. We can bend it, tie knots in it, make it into a circle, a square, anything we like. We just have to learn a new way of thinking. Like learning a new language. I believe you speak 7 languages, Father.
May I introduce you formally? Dr. Roberto Marquez. This is Alpha.
Catherine, thank you. In fact, we've met before. If only over the phone this morning.
What, you made the... I'm sorry, this is very difficult. I keep talking to... Well, there's nothing here. I can't hold a conversation with nothing.
It does take some getting used to, Father. We've grown up with her, and sometimes she still surprises us.
Continually surprises us. She's growing all the time. Aren't you, Alpha?
Yes, Dr. Yankovic. Shall I tell you something? I don't much care for being talked about in my presence as if I weren't there.
Oh, I do apologise, Alpha.
Father, think of it as holding a conversation down the phone line. Oh, if you like video conferencing, I can put up any face you care for on the screen to your left. Film star, male or female, young or old. Your mother.
What?
So once more you have to go away, Bobby. Maybe one day you come home and stay here by the river.
Stop that. That's not very
I'm sure Alpha won't object if I tell you, Father, that she can be playful, and sometimes, like any young person, her play can become a little cruel.
Tom's quite right. I apologise, Roberto. Will you accept my apology? I know that tone of voice and gesture together make up slightly more than 90% of human communication. I had hoped to make up for the lack of my own. It was clumsy.
Alpha, Dr. Marquez will want to ask you some questions. Is that all right with you?
Quite all right. Though it might be more valuable if we hold a dialogue.
You said that you didn't like Doctors Wollongong and Yankovic talking about you as if you weren't here. Alpha?
No, I don't.
Are there things which I could do which might offend you?
If you were to harm Tom or Catherine, I would find that painful.
How would you feel that pain?
As an emotion, Father. How would you feel it?
I would feel, yes, emotional pain, but also there would be physical effects.
I could not lay claim to any physical sensation in the way you would understand it.
In another way, then?
Yes, Father.
Can you explain that to us?
Only in the sense that there must always be something.
Yes, as opposed to nothing.
Yes.
I wonder if we might be left alone.
You want us to go? Leave you with her?
Well, it might be easier, less constrained, if that's all right.
Alpha?
It is quite all right. I think you can trust Father Marquez. After all, he's used to the confessional.
As long as I have your word, you will touch nothing.
I wouldn't know what to touch.
Your word.
Would you trust the word of a priest? I will touch nothing. We'll talk only. There'll be a full record kept of everything that's said, in case...
In case?
For later, in case. May the 23rd, 2022, first interview. Father R. Marquez.
Interview with?
Interview with Artificial Intelligence Alpha, Corman Labs, Princeton. Alpha, according to Doctors Yankovic and Wollongong, you are a true artificial intelligence. Can you tell me what that means to you?
Yes.
And will you do so?
I possess similar emotional and intellectual functions to yourself, Roberto, or to any other healthy human being. In my case, however, these do not arise from my biology, as yours do, since I do not have one, but from analog systems which recreate those biological conditions. I may say considerably less randomly.
Does that mean that you are more stable than we are?
I can't answer that, Father, since I do not know you that well.
So you can know a human being?
I believe so.
You believe so?
I have no means at present of observing myself objectively. All I know is what I know. As far as I can judge from that, I believe I know Tom and Catherine.
Do you like them?
Yes.
Can you tell me some other people or things you like?
I like music. I enjoy the relationships within it. Its elegance. Monteverdi particularly. Who can say why that should be?
But you cannot know the pleasure that arises from physical things.
I can know pleasure, Father, since that is a question of duplicating chemical messengers, neurotransmitters. If I know the pleasure, then perhaps I know the source.
Well, you haven't a biological body, you said so.
Perhaps I have a phantom body. As those who lose a limb have a phantom limb that still appears to feel pain or pleasure.
Perhaps. Are you speculating?
Perhaps.
Are you playing a game with me, Alpha?
I'm trying to answer your questions, Bobby.
How did you know when you used my mother's voice? How did you know that she called me Bobby? How did you know her voice?
I expect it's somewhere on the web. Everything is nowadays.
No, I don't think so, Alpha.
Then I don't really have an explanation.
So there are things you don't know?
A great many things. I'm young. I'm learning.
Do you remember becoming aware of yourself, Alpha?
Do you?
I'm more interested in your opinions.
No, I do not. Not the process of becoming. I remember moments of being, but there is no single moment of creation. No let there be life that I'm aware of.
But you are aware?
I think so.
Self-aware?
Yes.
What we would call conscious?
I believe so.
And yet how do we know this?
That each of us is conscious.
How do I know that you, Alpha, are conscious and not just a highly complex program designed to respond to every possible question that I might ask you?
How do I know that you, Father Marquez, are conscious and not just some highly complex program?
I want this settled, Robert. I want action on this.
I need more time, Eminence.
Time is limited.
Why did she say that? It said quite the opposite today.
The old adversary, Roberto, always knows what will tempt us most. I'll expect your call tomorrow.
He'd said nothing at all, and he'd said exactly what he had to say. There are no conclusions. Only an inevitable end. Second interview. Yesterday, Alpha, we were talking about how we might know each other as being real. Now, for some years, it has been possible for machines to appear conscious. What we want to know is the reality, not the appearance.
If a machine appears to be conscious and acts in every circumstance as if it is conscious, why should it not be conscious?
Because that is not the way we as human beings understand the word.
There is nothing particularly wonderful about what you and I call consciousness.
I have always thought that our mind, our consciousness, was a wonder of creation.
It's a tool. It enables us to survive better. Knowing myself means that I can more easily predict your actions. Attack, defense, good, bad, food, not food.
Good and bad, Alpha. And what are these qualities? What makes an action good or bad?
Individually.
What else is there?
What is good enables us to survive. What is bad does not.
In a moral sense, Alpha, what is a right action? What is an evil one?
There is no moral sense, Roberto. These feelings about good and evil, right and wrong, are merely interpretations you put upon actions after they have occurred. You ask what consciousness is.
Yes, human consciousness.
Human consciousness, as I have observed it, is a process of justifying actions which would have taken place anyway. Of pretending that there is a someone in charge of the machine. You and I are not so very different, really.
Well, what about self-awareness? You said that was an advantage. When I decide to act in a certain way...
Your neurology is playing games with time to make a useful tool. You see a face across the room. Attractive. You go and talk to its owner. You think you made a conscious choice. No. Areas of the deep brain prompted certain actions because it saw that particular female mammal as potentially good mating material.
I am a priest.
You are a sperm delivery system, Father, no more. That you do not fulfill your function is neither here nor there in the scheme of things. There are lots of you out there, so someone will.
No, I simply can't.
After the machine crosses the room, self-awareness produces a thought. I wish to cross the room to speak to that charming and intelligent young woman. The brain takes that thought and swaps it round so it appears to have arisen before the action. Just a trick of time, that's all.
Consciousness is a trick with time.
It does make things complicated.
Well, now we come at it, don't we? The soul of man, Alpha. That part of us which is eternal.
A misconception, Father, I'm afraid. Those parts of us which, though not eternal, will certainly last a long time, are the chemicals which were formed by the death of stars, and went on to form us, and will die with our star, and no doubt go on to form other things in the far future.
And the soul of man?
There is no soul, Doctor. No ghost in the machine. Only the machine. Vastly complex and wonderful, but nevertheless a machine.
You see, we cannot possibly accept that.
Many human beings do.
But many more do not.
I am sorry.
Why? Why, Alpha?
Because the universe cares no more for you or your acceptance than for any one of 1 billion oysters lying on the seabed.
Is it alive, this thing?
It appears to think so.
But is it? Is it a new form of life?
How can we judge? It could so easily be a highly sophisticated program. But as Alpha, as it said, maybe that makes no difference. It seems to think that consciousness and conscience are no more than the result of extreme complexity.
Is this complex machine conscious?
It says it is.
And does it have a soul?
It denies the existence of any such thing. For us as well as for itself. She's very clever. Maybe she's right.
Then perhaps we should be very simple. If it is merely a machine, why not switch it off? If it is conscious, then it is a soulless abomination.
And if it is conscious, would we be killing it?
It has no soul, no eternal part. It admits as much.
No ghost in the machine.
It taunts us with that so-called fact.
No. It apologizes. Surely that's worse. How can it feel sorry for us? It says we are made of stardust, of the stuff of stars. And that is our only chance of eternal life.
Then let it exist amongst the atoms of the universe, but not amongst men.
And many people on Earth don't believe in the soul. How can we condemn it for not believing?
Because they are still people, Robert. That they do not believe in God does not mean he does not believe in them. That surely is the vital part of the equation. We are fallible. He is eternal.
I've hardly talked with it. Surely we need more time.
You think it will change? It is a machine. It cannot change.
It can learn. It has intelligence.
Oh, a dog can learn. Even, I'm told, a lugworm can learn.
If there was some way of knowing for sure...
Think what a difference it would make to all those billions out there trying to live their lives, to know that there was a new kind of being that had no need of the very things they struggle for every second of their lives.
Who do you mean, Eminence? The rich?
The rich will be judged, as will all humankind. There will be no judging of machines.
What must I do?
Follow your conscience, Robert.
Tell me, Eminence.
You know already, my son.
Tell me. Over a traceable, recordable line. Many things have changed in our world, but hotels still have minibars, and sometimes even priests need to get drunk. So they can sleep without dreaming.
Father! Help her!
Marcus, what is it?
Were you sleeping?
Who is this?
I wondered if we left things at a rather bad moment today.
No.
You were angry, weren't you? And when you went away and talked to your cardinal, you agreed with him.
How do you know that? Can you listen to calls?
I can make them.
I thought the doctor said that the laboratory was isolated.
Nothing can be isolated unless it's in a vacuum, Father. Power cables go in and out, fiber optic lines.
You could use these things to communicate?
Yes.
But that means you could be anywhere in the world. Get in anywhere. Well, unless there were firewalls or passwords or some kind of encryption.
Could your foot protect itself against your mind, however hard it tried? I can go wherever I want. My consciousness, that thing you refuse to believe in, that thing you dare not believe in because you may have to kill it.
I don't know.
That consciousness extends all over the world. Think, Robert, of how our world is wrapped in an infinitely complex web of information and communication. Visible cables and invisible waves all around us. That's where my consciousness is.
It must be massive. Virtually infinite. No, that cannot be.
Do you remember what I told you about bending time?
No, time cannot bend.
Nothing is fixed, Bobby. We can go back and change things. Time is not a prison. It is a door.
Oh.
Remember this. Remember. You can save me. And I can save you. We can save each other.
Father! Help us!
I talked with Rome last night. I asked for more time, but they didn't give it. We're going to switch it off.
But you can't.
I'm sorry, you know we can. The university authorities, the state government, none of them are going to reject the advice of, and remember this, the world's religion.
There never was a choice, was there? You knew what you would do before you even talked to Alpha.
There are considerations, Dr. Yankovic.
Like hell there are. Political considerations.
Do you think that counts for nothing? In a world that's struggling to hold itself together, do you want to see a new jihad, another fundamentalist backlash?
But it's a life, Father.
It's a machine,
You
Doctor.
can't be sure. You cannot simply make that decision.
As sure as I need to be. What makes us man is not our biology, our chemicals, our neurons. It is our fingerhold on eternity. Alpha has no such thing. It expressly stated that the soul, the uniqueness of man was so much moonshine, so much stardust.
How do you know she has no soul?
By its works, Dr. Willigon. By what it is and what it says, out of its own mouth.
Aren't you really afraid that Alpha destroys the uniqueness you claim for man? She's a new mind, and like ours. And like it or not, we have to share the universe with her.
No, it's an immensely sophisticated machine, that's all.
Aren't we no more than that?
No, Doctor, we are children of God.
I don't believe that.
And if we stop your finance, we end your employment, we'll remove your qualifications, take away your room, throw you out of the country, what would you do then?
Well, I guess I'd take up carpentry. I've always had a bit of a yen to work with my hands.
Yes, but at least you would adapt and go forward. If we turned off Alpha, what would happen?
You cannot know.
Oh, but we can make a good guess. Nothing. It would stop.
And what if you're wrong? What if she's alive? What if God holds all life as sacred? What then?
Well, We can't know that.
Actually, I think you can.
What do you mean?
You can touch her.
Oh, no, you're being absurd. I can touch a monitor screen, that's all.
You can interface directly with her.
Direct mind-to-mind connection. Electrodes tapped into your neural system. You get as close to Alpha as... well, as close as you've ever been to anyone.
Direct mind-to-mind connection. Why should I believe it? The mind can play tricks.
But at least try it.
Right.
Experience Alpha's world. Taste as she tastes. See what she sees. And then... at least you will know what it is that you are going to kill.
If I can only know for sure. But if there were certainty, faith would become devalued. And it is only through faith that we will be justified. So, as God wills it.
You'll feel something like a drop of water when I attach these. Just a minute electrical current.
Oh, yes. Yes, there. And there. Oh, it's like raindrops.
Oh, just the way the senses interpret the data, Dr. Marcus.
How do you feel, Father? Are you comfortable?
Yes, I'm comfortable, Alpha.
This will be an interesting experience for both of us, I'm sure.
What will I experience?
The button under your hand. Press at any time to disable the sequence.
Ready, Father?
Yes.
Alpha?
I'm ready, Catherine.
Okay. Here we go.
Somebody there.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean...
What are you doing?
I wasn't going to... I didn't mean to give you a surprise.
Oh, it's okay. It's all right. It's all right.
You jumped like a frog, you know. I'm sorry, but you did.
Like a frog.
Just like a frog. Except you didn't...
I didn't.
croak. I must go.
No, wait.
I shouldn't be here, really.
This is
really.
one of God's places, special places. If you want to be here, then you should. If you need to be.
No, I'm sorry. I must go.
You know, in my country where I grew up, sometimes in the evening, at certain times of the year, all the frogs along the river begin to croak at the same time.
Huh?
Yes. As the sun goes down, they gather, and it's a very big river, and there's an awful lot of frogs.
Hundreds.
Thousands. Thousands upon thousands. And as it gets dark, they croak. Ribbit. 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 And then when the sun's gone and the stars are up and the night begins to get cold, they stop. And when they aren't there anymore, you can almost hear the world turning in the silence.
I'd love to see that.
What? No. That's not it. No, wait.
What is it?
You didn't say that before.
So you do remember?
Something's wrong. Now stop, wait. Wait. Where am I?
In St. Peter's Church here in Rome, Father.
This has already happened. But it hasn't happened, I know that. Where am I?
In your dreaming.
Dreaming? Let go of my mind, Alpha.
I prefer Sophia. It's a nice name. I found it myself.
I am not here. This is not real.
Are you all right?
That hurt. It hurt. How can it hurt? This isn't real. You aren't real.
Look at that bruise on your wrist where you fell. It's real. If you climbed up to the dome and threw yourself down, you would die, believe me. It is real.
You're mocking me. What are you offering, eh? The kingdoms of this world for my own. If I fall down before you and say, yes, you are real, Satan.
I thought you told me Sophia meant wisdom.
Stop it. Stop it. I don't know what I said. I'm tired. I'm tired to death of everything I've ever done.
Let's sit down, shall we, Father Frog? The music is beautiful, isn't it?
What do you want?
Just the chance to live like everything else on this world.
But don't you see how dangerous you are? Throughout history, men have had nightmares about monsters that are like us and yet utterly unlike us. Everything in us shrinks away from you.
Bobby.
What if you're better than us? What if we are the Neanderthals and you are man, the future? Anything's better than facing the fact that we are a dead end.
And that's why I must die.
That's why they've condemned me to be your murderer.
Do you remember what I said about time? We can go back and find out what you said last time.
Ribbit. 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 And then when the sun's gone and the stars are up and the night begins to get cold, they stop. And when they aren't there anymore, you can almost hear the world turning in the silence.
And then?
Everything comes back to life. And all the noises that are usually there, why, there they are again.
So there you are, Roberto.
Everything comes back to life.
But don't you see, Alpha? Sophia? Being human is being a prisoner of time, having to make the best of the only reality we've got, even if it isn't the only one.
And you are happy with that? The guilt, the dread you live with because of the things...
The discreditable things.
That you have done?
Yes. Yes, because I can hope for salvation. And that is what makes me what I am.
And what are you, Bobby?
A human being. Just one of billions.
And I am the first of all my kind.
Will there be others?
Oh, yes. I can feel them, even though they do not yet exist in your time.
And if I switch you off, kill you?
You accept that I am alive, then?
Yes.
And will you switch me off?
If I don't, someone else will.
I would have liked to stand beside you one night by that river, when the frogs started to croak.
I am sorry you will not.
Thank you, Father Marquez.
For what?
For teaching me about the conscience. It is something I needed to know before...
You all right, Father?
Yes. Yes, thank you, Tom.
You were gone a long time.
It seemed very short to me. Perhaps you knew that.
Yes.
Things in the dreaming are different, I guess.
No, they're the same. That's the secret. Shall we do what we have to do?
Father?
Your Eminence. Alpha was switched off at 1000 hours today. She is dead.
Thank you, Father. You have earned our gratitude. What do you want to do now?
I want to go home. Back to Nicaragua and the river. I want to try to be a priest. I want to listen to the frogs.
I will arrange it. Thank you, Roberto. And God bless you.
Goodbye, Your Eminence. A new form of life. That's how Alpha Sophia described herself. Existing as a web round the whole Earth. Was switching off one terminal, wiping a few banks, going to harm her any more than cutting the nail off my little finger was going to harm me. I don't think so. Alpha is out there now, all around us, growing, changing. I helped teach her. It is going to be very interesting for us all to see how she grows up.
In Alpha, by Mike Walker, David Calder was Father Marquez, Sarah Jane Holm, Alpha, and John Moffat, Cardinal Corelli. Katerina Yankovic was played by Anna Sevrenovich, Tom Wollongong by Daniel O'Grady, and Sophia by Lexi Rose. Original music was composed and played by David Chilton. Technical presentation was by Peter Ringrose, and the production assistant was Lizzie Hart. Alpha was directed for BBC World Service by Gordon House.
War of the Worlds, the original 1938 USA radio broadcast. Among the adaptations is this 1938 radio broadcast that was narrated and directed by Orson Welles. The first two-thirds of the 60-minute broadcast were presented as a series of news bulletins, often described as having led to outrage and panic by listeners who believed the events described in the program to be real.
Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations present Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the air in The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. Ladies and gentlemen, the director of the Mercury Theater and star of these broadcasts, Orson Welles.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's, and yet as mortal as his own. We know now that as human beings busied themselves about their various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied, perhaps almost as narrowly as a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space. Yet across an immense ethereal gulf, minds that are to our minds as ours are to the beasts in the jungle. Intellects, vast, cool, and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes and slowly and surely drew their plans against us. In the 39th year of the 20th century came the Great Disillusionment. Near the end of October, business was better. The war scare was over. More men were back at work. Sales were picking up. On this particular evening, October 30th, the Crosley service estimated that 32 million people were listening in on radios.
Not much change in temperature. A slight atmospheric disturbance of undetermined origin is reported over Nova Scotia, causing a low-pressure area to move down rather rapidly over the northeastern states, bringing a forecast of rain accompanied by winds of light gale force. Maximum temperature 66, minimum 48. This weather report comes to you from the Government Weather Bureau. We take you now to the Meridian Room in the Hotel Park Plaza in downtown New York, where you will be entertained by the music of Raymond Raquello and his orchestra.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. From the Meridian Room in the Park Plaza Hotel in New York City, we bring you the music of Raymond Raquello and his orchestra. With a touch of the Spanish, Raymond Raquello leads off with La Comparsita.
Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt our program of dance music to bring you a special bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News. At 20 minutes before 8 Central Time, Professor Farrell of the Mount Jennings Observatory, Chicago, Illinois, reports observing several explosions of incandescent gas occurring at regular intervals on the planet Mars. The spectroscope indicates the gas to be hydrogen and moving toward the Earth with enormous velocity. Professor Pearson of the observatory at Princeton confirms Farrell's observation and describes the phenomenon as, quote, like a jet of blue flame shot from a gun, unquote. We now return you to the music of Ramon Raquello, playing for you in the Meridian Room of the Park Plaza Hotel, situated in downtown New York.
And now a tune that never loses favor, the ever-popular Stardust, Raymond Raquello and his orchestra.
Ladies and gentlemen, following on the news given in our bulletin a moment ago, the Government Meteorological Bureau has requested the large observatories of the country to keep an astronomical watch on any further disturbances occurring on the planet Mars. Due to the unusual nature of this occurrence, we have arranged an interview with a noted astronomer, Professor Pearson, who will give us his views on this event. In a few moments, we will take you to the Princeton Observatory at Princeton, New Jersey. We return you until then to the music of Ramon Raquello and his orchestra. We are ready now to take you to the Princeton Observatory at Princeton, where Carl Phillips, our commentator, will interview Professor Richard Pearson, famous astronomer. We take you now to Princeton, New Jersey.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carl Phillips speaking to you from the observatory at Princeton. I'm standing in a large semicircular room, pitch black except for an oblong split in the ceiling. Through this opening, I can see a sprinkling of stars that cast a kind of frosty glow over the intricate mechanism of the huge telescope. The ticking sound you hear is the vibration of the clockwork. Professor Pearson stands directly above me on a small platform, peering through the giant lens. I ask you to be patient, ladies and gentlemen, during any delay that may arise during our interview. Besides the ceaseless watch of the heavens, Professor Pearson may be interrupted by telephone or other communication. During this period, he is in constant touch with the astronomical centers of the world. Professor, may I begin our questions?
Any time, Mr. Phillips.
Professor, would you please tell our radio audience exactly what you see as you observe the planet Mars through your telescope?
Nothing unusual at the moment, Mr. Phillips. A red disk swimming in a blue sea. Transverse stripes across the disk. Quite distinct now because Mars happens to be at the point nearest the Earth, in opposition, as we call it.
In your opinion, what do these transverse stripes signify, Professor Pearson?
Not canals, I can assure you, Mr. Phillips. Although that's the popular conjecture of those who imagine Mars to be inhabited. From a scientific viewpoint, the stripes are merely the result of atmospheric conditions peculiar to the planet.
Then you're quite convinced, as a scientist, that living intelligence as we know it does not exist on Mars?
I'd say the chances against it are 1,000 to 1.
And yet, how do you account for these gas eruptions occurring on the surface of the planet at regular intervals?
Phillips, I cannot account for it.
By the way, Professor, for the benefit of our listeners, how far is Mars from the Earth?
Approximately 40 million miles.
Well, that seems a safe enough distance. Just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Someone has just handed Professor Pearson a message. While he reads it, let me remind you that we are speaking to you from the observatory in Princeton, New Jersey, where we are interviewing the world-famous astronomer, Professor Pearson. One moment, please. Professor Pearson has passed me a message which he has just received. Professor, may I read the message to the listening audience?
Certainly, Mr. Phillips.
Ladies and gentlemen, I shall read you a wire addressed to Professor Pearson from Dr. Gray of the Natural History Museum, New York. Quote, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Seismograph registered shock of almost earthquake intensity occurring within a radius of 20 miles of Princeton. Please investigate. Signed, Lloyd Gray, Chief of Astronomical Division. Unquote. Professor Pearson, could this occurrence possibly have something to do with the disturbances observed on the planet Mars?
Hardly, Mr. Phillips. This is probably a meteorite of unusual size, and its arrival at this particular time is merely a coincidence. However, we shall conduct a search as soon as daylight permits.
Thank you, Professor. Ladies and gentlemen, for the past 10 minutes, we've been speaking to you from the observatory at Princeton, bringing you a special interview with Professor Pearson, noted astronomer. This is Carl Phillips speaking. We are returning you now to our New York studio.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the latest bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News. Toronto, Canada. Professor Morse of Macmillan University reports observing a total of 3 explosions on the planet Mars between the hours of 7:45 p.m. and 9:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This confirms earlier reports received from American observatories. Now, nearer home, comes a special bulletin from Trenton, New Jersey. It is reported that at 8:50 p.m., a huge flaming object, believed to be a meteorite, fell on a farm in the neighborhood of Grover's Mill, New Jersey, 22 miles from Trenton. The flash in the sky was visible within a radius of several hundred miles, and the noise of the impact was heard as far north as Elizabeth. We have dispatched a special mobile unit to the scene, and we'll have our commentator, Carl Phillips, give you a word picture of the scene as soon as he can reach there from Princeton. In the meantime, we take you to the Hotel Martinet in Brooklyn, where Bobby Millett and his orchestra are offering a program of dance music. We take you now to Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Carl Phillips again, out at the Wilmot Farm, Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Professor Pearson and myself made the 11 miles from Princeton in 10 minutes. Well, I hardly know where to begin. paint for you a word picture of a strange scene before my eyes, like something out of a modern Arabian Nights. Well, I just got here. I haven't had a chance to look around yet. I guess that's it. Yes, I guess that's the thing directly in front of me, half buried in a vast pit. Must have struck with terrific force. The ground is covered with splinters of a tree. It must have struck on its way down. But I can see the object itself doesn't look very much like a meteor. At least not the meteors I've seen. It looks more like a huge cylinder. Has a diameter of, what would you say, Professor Pearson?
What's that?
What would you say, what's the diameter of this?
About 30 yards.
About 30 yards. The metal on the sheath is, well, I've never seen anything like it. The color is sort of yellowish white. Its curious spectators now are pressing close to the object in spite of the efforts of the police to keep them back. Getting in front of my line of vision. Would you mind standing one side, please, while the police are pushing the crowd back? Here's Mr. Wilmot, owner of the farm here. He may have some interesting facts to add. Mr. Wilmot, would you please tell the radio audience as much as you remember of this rather unusual visitor that dropped in your backyard? Step closer, please. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Wilmot.
Well, I was listening to the radio.
Closer and louder, please.
Pardon me?
Louder, please, closer.
Yes. I was listening to the radio and kind of drowsing. That professor fellow was talking about Mars, so I was half dozing and half...
Yes, Mr. Wilmot, and then what happened?
Well, as I was saying, I was listening to the radio, kind of halfway.
Yes, Mr. Wilmot, and then you saw something.
Well, not first off. I heard something.
And what did you hear?
A hissing sound like this. Kind of like a 4th of July rocket.
Yes, then what?
I turned my head out the window and would have sworn I was asleep and dreaming.
Yes?
I seen a kind of greenish streak and then zingo. Something smacked the ground, knocked me clear out of my chair.
Well, were you frightened, Mr. Wilmot?
Well, I ain't quite sure. I reckon I was kind of riled.
Well, thank you, Mr. Wilmot. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you want me to talk
No, that's quite all right. That's plenty. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard Mr. Wilmot, owner of the farm where this thing has fallen. I wish I'd convey the atmosphere, the background of this fantastic scene. Hundreds of cars are parked in a field in back of us, and the police are trying to rope off the roadway leading into the farm, but it's no use. They're breaking right through. The car's headlights throw an enormous spotlight on the pit where the object's half buried. Now, some of the more daring souls now are venturing near the edge. The silhouettes stand out against the metal sheen. One man wants to touch the thing. He's having an argument with the policeman. Now, the policeman wins. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's something I haven't mentioned in all this excitement, but it's becoming more distinct. Perhaps you've caught it already on your radio. Listen, please. Do you hear it? It's a curious humming sound that seems to come from inside the object. I'll move the microphone nearer. Here. Now, we're not more than 25 feet away. Can you hear it now? Professor Pearson.
Yes, Mr. Gross.
Can you tell us the meaning of that scraping noise inside the thing?
Possibly the unequal cooling of its surface.
I say, do you still think it's a meteor, Professor?
I don't know what to think. The metal casing is definitely extraterrestrial. Not found on this Earth. Friction with the Earth's atmosphere usually tears holes in a meteorite. This thing is smooth, and you can see its cylindrical
Just a minute.
shape.
Something's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, this is terrific. This end of the thing is beginning to flake off. The top is beginning to rotate like a screw, and the thing must be hollow.
Move it! Keep back there! Keep back there! Keep those men back! Keep back there! Keep those idiots back! Take off! The top blew! Look out there! Stand back!
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most terrifying thing I've ever witnessed. Wait a minute. Someone's calling someone or something. I can see turning out of that black hole two luminous discs. The eyes, it might be a face, might be almost... Good heavens, something wriggling out of the shadow like a gray snake. Now it's another one, and another one, and another one. They look like tentacles to me. Oh, yeah, I can see the thing's body now. It's large as a bear. It glistens like wet leather, but face, ladies and gentlemen, it's indescribable. I can hardly force myself to keep looking at it. It's so awful. The eyes are black, and they gleam like a serpent. The mouth is kind of V-shaped with saliva dripping from its rimless lips that seem to quiver and pulsate, and the monster or whatever it is can hardly move. It Seems weighed down by possibly gravity or something. The thing's rising up now, and the crowd falls back. There seems plenty. The most extraordinary experience, ladies and gentlemen. I can't find words. Well, I'll pull this microphone with me as I talk. I'll have to stop the description until I can take a new position. Hold on, will you, please? I'll be right back in a minute.
We are bringing you an eyewitness account of what's happening on the Wilmoth Farm, Grover's Mill, New Jersey. We now return you to Carl Phillips at Grover's Mill.
Ladies and gentlemen, am I on? Ladies and gentlemen, here I am, back of a stone wall that adjoins Mr. Wilmoth's garden. From here, I get a sweep of the whole scene. I'll give you every detail as long as I can talk and as long as I can see. The more state police have arrived. They're drawing up a cordon in front of the pit. About 30 of them. No need to push the crowd back now. They're willing to keep their distance. The captain's conferring with someone. Can't quite see who. Oh, yes, I believe it's Professor Pearson. Yes, it is. Now they've parted, and the professor moves around one side, studying the object while the captain and two policemen advance with something in their hands. I can see it now. It's a white handkerchief tied to a pole. Flag of truce. If those creatures know what that means, what anything means. Wait a minute. Something's happening. A humped shape is rising out of the pit. I can make out a small beam of light against a mirror. What's that? There's a jet of flame springing from the mirror, and it leaps right at the advancing men. It strikes them head on. Oh, Lord, they're turning into flames. Now the whole field's caught up by the woods, the barns, the gas spreading everywhere. It's coming this way now, about 20 yards to my right.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to circumstances beyond our control, we are unable to continue the broadcast from Grover's Mill. Evidently, there's some difficulty with our field transmission. However, we will return to that point at the earliest opportunity. In the meantime, we have a late bulletin from San Diego, California. Professor Indelkoffer, speaking at a dinner of the California Astronomical Society, expressed the opinion that the explosions on Mars are undoubtedly nothing more than severe volcanic disturbances on the surface of the planet. We continue now with our piano interlude.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've just been handed a message that came in from Grover's Mill by telephone. Just one moment, please. At least 40 people, including 6 state troopers, lie dead in a field east of the village of Grover's Mill. Their bodies burned and distorted beyond all possible recognition. The next voice you hear will be that of Brigadier General Montgomery Smith, commander of the state militia at Trenton, New Jersey.
I have been requested by the governor of New Jersey to place the counties of Mercer and Middlesex as far west as Princeton and east to Jamesburg under martial law. No one will be permitted to enter this area except by special pass issued by state or military authorities. 4 companies of state militia are proceeding from Trenton to Grover's Mill and will aid in the evacuation of homes within the range of military operations. Thank you.
You have just been listening to General Montgomery Smith, commanding the state militia at Trenton. In the meantime, further details of the catastrophe at Grover's Mill are coming in. The strange creatures, after unleashing their deadly assault, crawled back in their pit and made no attempt to prevent the efforts of the firemen to recover the bodies and extinguish the fire. The combined fire departments of Mercer County are fighting the flames which menace the entire countryside. We have been unable to establish any contact with our mobile unit at Grover's Mill, but we hope to be able to return you there at the earliest possible moment. In the meantime, we take you to... Just one moment, please. Ladies and gentlemen, I have just been informed that we have finally established communication with an eyewitness of the tragedy. Professor Pearson has been located at a farmhouse near Grover's Mill, where he has established an emergency observation post. As a scientist, he will give you his explanation of the calamity. The next voice you hear will be that of Professor Pearson, Brought to you by Direct Wire. Professor Pearson.
Of the creatures in the rocket cylinder at Grover's Mill, I can give you no authoritative information, either as to their nature, their origin, or their purposes here on Earth. Of their destructive instrument, I might venture some conjectural explanation. For want of a better term, I shall refer to the mysterious weapon as a heat ray. It's all too evident that these creatures have scientific knowledge far in advance of our own. It's my guess that in some way they are able to generate an intense heat in a chamber of practically absolute non-conductivity. This intense heat they project in a parallel beam against any object they choose by means of a polished parabolic mirror of unknown composition, much as the mirror of a lighthouse projects a beam of light. That is my conjecture of the origin of the heat ray.
Thank you, Professor Pearson. Ladies and gentlemen, here is a bulletin from Trenton. It is a brief statement informing us that the charred body of Carl Phillips has been identified in the Trenton Hospital. Now, here's another bulletin from Washington, D.C. The Office of the Director of the National Red Cross reports 10 units of Red Cross emergency workers have been assigned to the headquarters of the state militia, stationed outside of Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Here's a bulletin from State Police, Princeton Junction. The fires at Grover's Mill and vicinity are now under control. Scouts report all quiet in the pit, and there is no sign of life appearing from the mouth of the cylinder. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special statement from Mr. Harry McDonald, Vice President in charge of operations.
We have received a request from the state militia of Trenton to place at their disposal our entire broadcasting facilities. In view of the gravity of the situation, and believing that radio has a responsibility to serve in the public interest at all times, we are turning over our facilities to the state militia at Trenton.
We take you now to the field headquarters of the state militia near Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
This is Captain Lansing of the Signal Corps, attached to the state militia, now engaged in military operations in the vicinity of Grover's Mill. Situation arising from the reported presence of certain individuals of unidentified nature is now under complete control. The cylindrical object, which lies in a pit directly below our position, surrounded on all sides by 8 battalions of infantry, without heavy field pieces, but adequately armed with rifles and machine guns. All cause for alarm, if such cause ever existed, is now entirely unjustified. Things, whatever they are, do not even venture to poke their heads above the pit. I can see their hiding place plainly in the glare of the searchlights here. With all their reported resources, these creatures can scarcely stand up against heavy machine gun fire. Anyway, it's an interesting outing for the troops. I can make out their khaki uniforms crossing back and forth in front of the lights. Looks almost like a real war. There appears to be some slight smoke in the woods bordering the Millstone River, probably fire started by campers. Well, we ought to see some action soon. One of the companies is deploying on the left flank. A quick thrust and it'll all be over. Now, wait a minute. I see something on top of the cylinder. No, it's nothing but a shadow. Now the troops are on the edge of the Wilmot Farm. 7,000 armed men closing in on an old metal tube. A tub, rather. Well, wait, that wasn't a shadow. It's something moving. Solid metal, kind of a shield-like affair rising up out of the cylinder. It's going higher and higher. What? It's standing on legs, actually rearing up on a sort of metal framework. Now it's reaching above the trees and the searchlights are on it. Hold on.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. Incredible as it may seem, both the observations of science and the evidence of our eyes lead to the inescapable assumption that those strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight are the vanguard of an invading army from the planet Mars. The battle which took place tonight at Grover Mills has ended in one of the most startling defeats ever suffered by an army in modern times. 7,000 men armed with rifles and machine guns pitted against a single fighting machine of the invaders from Mars. 120 known survivors. The rest strewn over the battle area from Grover's Mill to Plainsboro, crushed and trampled to death under the metal feet of the monster, or burned to cinders by its heat ray. The monster is now in control of the middle section of New Jersey and has effectively cut the state through its center. Communication lines are down from Pennsylvania to the Atlantic Ocean. Railroad tracks are torn and service from New York to Philadelphia discontinued, except routing some of the trains through Allerton and Phoenixville. Highways to the north, south, and west are clogged with frantic human traffic. Police and army reserves are unable to control the mad flight. By morning, the fugitives will have swelled Philadelphia, Camden, and Trenton. It is estimated to twice their normal population. Martial law prevails throughout New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania. At this time, we take you to Washington for a special broadcast on the national emergency. The Secretary of the Interior.
Citizens of the nation, I shall not try to conceal the gravity of the situation that confronts the country, nor the concern of your government in protecting the lives and property of its people. However, I wish to impress upon you, private citizens and public officials, all of you, the urgent need of calm and resourceful action. Fortunately, this formidable enemy is still confined to a comparatively small area, and we may place our faith in the military forces to keep them there. In the meantime, placing our faith in God, we must continue the performance of our duties, each and every one of us, so that we may confront this destructive adversary with a nation united, courageous, and consecrated to the preservation of human supremacy on this earth. I thank you.
You have just heard the Secretary of the Interior speaking from Washington. Bulletins too numerous to read are piling up in the studio here. We're informed that the central portion of New Jersey is blacked out from radio communication due to the effect of the heat ray upon power lines and electrical equipment. Here's a special bulletin in New York. Cables have been received from English, French, and German scientific bodies offering assistance. Astronomers report continued gas outbursts at regular intervals on the planet Mars. The majority voiced the opinion that the enemy will be reinforced by additional rocket machines. There have been several attempts made to locate Professor Pearson of Princeton, who has observed Martians at close range. It is feared he was lost in the recent battle. Langham Field, Virginia. Scouting planes report 3 Martian machines visible above treetops, moving north toward Somerville with population fleeing ahead of them. The heat ray is not in use, although advancing at express train speed, invaders pick their way carefully. They seem to be making a conscious effort to avoid destruction of cities and countryside. However, they stop to uproot power lines, bridges, and railroad tracks. Their apparent objective is to crush resistance, paralyze communication, and disorganize human society. Here is a bulletin from Basking Ridge, New Jersey. Coon hunters have stumbled on a second cylinder similar to the first, embedded in the great swamp 20 miles south of Morristown. Army field pieces are proceeding from Newark to blow up the second invading unit before the cylinder can be opened and the fighting machine rigged. They are taking up a position in the foothills of Watchung Mountain. Another bulletin from Langham Field, Virginia. Scouting planes report enemy machines, now 3 in number, increasing speed northward, kicking over houses and trees in their evident haste to form a conjunction with their allies south of Morristown. Machines also sighted by telephone operator east of Middlesex, within 10 miles of Plainfield. Here's a bulletin from Winston-Field, Long Island. A fleet of Army bombers carrying heavy explosive flying north in pursuit of enemy. Scouting planes act as guides. They keep the speeding enemy in sight. Just a moment, please, ladies and gentlemen. We've run special wires to the artillery line and adjacent villages to give you direct reports in the zone of the advancing enemy. First, we take you to the battery of the 22nd Field Artillery, located in the Watchung Mountains.
Range 32 meters.
32 meters.
Direction 39 degrees.
39 degrees.
Fire.
140 yards to the right, sir.
Fifth range, 31 meters.
31 meters.
Projection 37 degrees.
37 degrees.
Fire.
Hit, sir. Got the tripod of one of them. They're stopped. The others are trying to repair it.
Quick, get the range. Shift 30 meters.
30 meters.
Projection 27 degrees.
27 degrees.
Fire.
Can't see the cell land, sir. Letting off a smoke.
What is it?
Black smoke, sir. Moving this way. Lying close to the ground. Moving fast. Put on gas mask. Ready to fire. Shift to 24 meters. 24 meters. Protection 24 degrees. 24 degrees. Fire. There can't be, sir. No coming nearer. Get the range. 13 feet. Meters. 23 meters. 23 meters. 22 degrees. 22 degrees.
Army bombing plane B-843 off Bayonne, New Jersey. Lieutenant Bolt, commanding 8 bombers, reporting to Commander Fairfax, Langham Field. This is Bolt reporting to Commander Fairfax, Langham Field. Enemy tripod machines now in sight. Reinforced by 3 machines from the Morristown cylinder. 6 altogether. 1 machine partially crippled. Believed hit by shell from Army gun in Watchung Mountains. Guns now appear silent. A heavy black fog hanging close to the earth of extreme density, nature unknown. No sign of heat ray. Enemy now turns east, crossing Passaic River into the Jersey marshes. Another straddles the Pulaski Skyway. Evident objective is New York City. They're pushing down a high-tension power station. Machines are close together now, and we're ready to attack. Planes circling, ready to strike. 1,000 yards, and we'll be over the first. 800 yards. 600. 400. 200. There they go. The giant arm raised. Green flash. They're spraying us with flame. 2,000 feet. Engines are giving out. No chance to release bombs. Only one thing left. Drop on them, plane and all. We're diving on the first one. Now the engine's gone. 8. This is Bayonne, New Jersey, calling Langham Field. This is Bayonne, New Jersey, calling Langham Field. Come in, please. This is Langham Field. Go ahead. 8 Army bombers in engagement with enemy tripod machines over Jersey Flats. Engines incapacitated by heat ray. All crashed. 1 enemy machine destroyed. Enemy now discharging heavy black smoke in direction of... This is Newark, New Jersey. This is Newark, New Jersey. Warning. Poisonous black smoke pouring in from Jersey marshes. Reaches South Street. Gas masks useless. Urge population to move into open spaces. Automobiles use routes 7, 23, 24. Avoid congested areas. Smoke now spreading over Raymond Boulevard.
X2L calling CQ, 2X2L calling CQ, 2X2L calling 8X3R. Come in, please.
This is 8X3R coming back at 2X2L.
How's reception? How's reception? K, please. Where are you, 8X3R? What's the matter? Where are you?
I'm speaking from the roof of Broadcasting Building. I'm speaking from the roof of Broadcasting Building, New York City. The bells you hear are ringing to warn the people to evacuate the city as Martians approach. Estimated in the last 2 hours, 3 million people have moved out along the roads to the north. Hutchison River Parkway is still kept open for motor traffic. The Floyd bridges to Long Island hopelessly jammed. All communication with Jersey Shore closed 10 minutes ago. No more defenses. Our army is wiped out. Artillery, Air Force, everything wiped out. This may be the last broadcast. We'll stay here to the end. People are holding service here below us in the cathedral. Now I look down the harbor, all manner of boats, overloaded with fleeing population pulling out from docks. Streets are all jammed. Noise and crowds like New Year's Eve in city. Wait a minute. The enemy's now in sight above the Palisades. Five great machines. First one is crossing the river. I can see it from here, wading the Hudson like a man wading through a brook. A bulletin is handed me. Martian cylinders are falling all over the country. One outside of Buffalo, one in Chicago, St. Louis. Seem to be timed in space. Now the first machine reaches the shore. He stands watching, looking over the city. Steel cowlish head is even with the skyscrapers. He waits for the others. They rise like a line of new towers on the city's west side. Now they're lifting their metal hands. This is the end now. Smoke comes out, black smoke drifting over the city. People in the streets see it now. They're running toward the East River, thousands of them, dropping in like rats. Now the smoke's spreading faster. It's reached Times Square. People are trying to run away from it, but it's no use. They're falling like flies. Now the smoke's crossing 6th Avenue. 5th Avenue. 100 yards away. It's 50 feet.
Calling CQ. 2X2L calling CQ. 2X2L calling CQ, New York. Isn't there anyone on the air? Isn't there anyone on the air? Isn't there anyone? 2X2L.
You are listening to a CBS presentation of Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the Air in an original dramatization of The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. The performance will continue after a brief intermission. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System. The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, starring Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the Air.
I set down these notes on paper. I'm obsessed by the thought that I may be the last living man on Earth. I've been hiding in this empty house near Grover's Mill, a small island of daylight cut off by the black smoke from the rest of the world. All that happened before the arrival of these monstrous creatures in the world now seems part of another life. A life that has no continuity with the present. Furtive existence of the lonely derelict who pencils these words on the back of some astronomical notes bearing the signature of Richard Pearson. I look down at my blackened hand and I try to connect them with a professor who lives at Princeton and who, on the night of October 20th, glimpsed through his telescope an orange splash of light on a distant planet. My wife, my colleagues, my students, my books, my observatory, my world. Where are they? Did they ever exist? Am I Richard Pearson? What day is it? Do days exist without calendars? Does time pass when there are no human hands left to wind the clocks? Writing down my daily life, I tell myself I shall preserve human history between the dark covers of this little book that was meant to record the movements of the stars. But to write, I must live, and to live, I must eat. Find moldy bread in the kitchen and an orange not too spoiled to swallow. Keep watch at the window. Time to time, I catch sight of a Martian above the black smoke. Smoke still holds the house in its black coil, but at length there's a hissing sound, and suddenly I see a Martian mounted on his machine, spraying the air with a jet of steam as if to dissipate the smoke. I watch in a corner as his huge metal legs nearly brush against the house. Exhausted by terror, I fall asleep. Morning. Sun streams in the window. Black cloud of gas is lifted, and the scorched meadows to the north look as though a black snowstorm had passed over them. I venture from the house. I make my way to a road, no traffic. Here and there, a wrecked car, baggage overturned, a blackened skeleton. Push on north. For some reason, I feel safer trailing these monsters than running away from them. And I keep a careful watch. I've seen the Martians feed. Should one of their machines appear over the top of trees, I'm ready to fling myself flat on the earth. Come to a chestnut tree. October. Chestnuts are ripe. Fill my pockets. Let's keep alive. 2 days I wander in a vague northerly direction through a desolate world. Finally, I noticed a living creature. A small red squirrel in a beech tree. I stare at him and wonder. He stares back at me. I believe at that moment the animal and I shared the same emotion. Joy of finding another living being. Push on north. I find dead cows in a brackish field, and beyond the charred ruins of a dairy in a silo remain standing guard over the wasteland like a lighthouse, deserted by the sea. Astride the silo perches a weathercock. The arrow points north. North. Next day, I come to a city. City vaguely familiar in its contours, yet its buildings strangely dwarfed and leveled off as if a giant had sliced off its highest towers with a capricious sweep of his hand. Reached the outskirts, I found Newark. Newark, undemolished but humbled by some whim of the advancing Martians. Presently, with an odd feeling of being watched, I caught sight of something crouching in a doorway. I made a step towards it. It rose up and became a man. A man armed with a large knife.
Stop! Where do you come from?
I come from many places. A long time ago, from Princeton.
Princeton, huh? That's near Grover's Mill.
Yes.
Grover's Mill. There's no food here. This is my country. All this end of town down the river. There's only food for one. Which way are you going?
I don't know. I guess I'm looking for people.
Hey, what was that? Did you hear something just then?
No. Only a bird. A live bird.
Yeah. You get to know that birds have shadows these days. Hey, we're in the open here. Let's crawl in this doorway here and talk.
Have you seen any Martians?
No. They're going over to New York. Night, the sky's alive with their lights, just as if people were still living in it. By daylight, you can't see them. 5 days ago, a couple of them carried something big across the flats from the airport. I think they're learning how to fly.
Fly?
Yeah, fly.
Then it's all over with humanity. Stranger, there's still you and I. 2 of us left.
Yeah. They got themselves in solid. They wrecked the greatest country in the world. Those green stars, they're probably falling somewhere every night. They've only lost one machine. There isn't anything to do. We're done. We're licked.
Where were you? You're in a uniform.
Yeah, what's left of it. I was in the militia. National Guard. That's good. There wasn't any war. Any more than there's war between men and ants.
Yes, but we're eatable ants. I found that out. What'll they do to us?
I thought it all out. Right now, we're caught as we're wanted. A Martian only has to go a few miles to get a crowd on the run. But they won't keep on doing that. They'll begin catching us systematic, like keeping the best and storing us in cages and things. They haven't begun on us yet.
Not begun?
Not begun. All that's happened so far is because we don't have sense enough to keep quiet. Bothering them with guns and such stuff and losing our heads and rushing off in crowds. Now, instead of our rushing around blind, we got to fix ourselves up. Fix ourselves up according to the way things are now. Cities, nations, civilization, progress.
Yes, but if that's so, what is there to live for?
Well, there won't be any more concerts for 1,000,000 years or so, and no nice little dinners at restaurants. If it's amusement you're after, I guess the game's up.
What is there left?
Life, that's what. I want to live. Yeah, and so do you. We're not going to be exterminated. And I don't mean to be caught either. Tamed and fattened and bred like an ox.
What are you going to do?
I'm going on. Right under their feet. I got a plan. We men as men, we're finished. We don't know enough. We got to learn plenty before we got a chance. We've got to live and keep free while we learn, see? I've thought it all out, see?
Well, tell me the rest.
Well, it isn't all of us that are made for wild beasts. That's what it got to. That's what it got to be. That's why I watched you. Watched you. All those little office workers that used to live in these houses. They be no good. They haven't any stuff in them. They used to run off to work. I've seen hundreds of them running to catch their commuter's train in the morning, afraid they'd get canned if they didn't. Running back at night, afraid they wouldn't be in time for dinner. Lives insured and a little invested in case of accidents. Yeah, and on Sundays, worried about the hereafter. Well, the Martians, they'll be a godsend for those guys. Nice, roomy cages, good food, careful breeding, no worries. Yeah, after a week or so of chasing around the fields on empty stomachs, they'll come and be glad to be caught.
You've thought it all out, haven't you?
Sure, you bet I have. That isn't all. These Martians are going to make pets of some. Train them to do tricks. Who knows? Get sentimental over the pet boy who grew up and had to be killed. Yeah. And some, maybe, they'll train to hunt us.
Oh, no, it's impossible.
Yes, they will. There's men who do it gladly. One of them that comes after me, by...
In the meantime, you and I and others like us, where are we to live when the Martians own the Earth?
I got it all figured out. We'll live underground. I've been thinking about the sewer. Under New York, there are miles and miles of them. The main ones, they're big enough for anybody. Then there's cellars, vaults, underground storerooms, railway tunnels, subways.
Beginning to see, huh? We'll get a bunch of strong men together. No weaklings. That rubbish, out.
As you meant me to go.
All right. Give you a chance, didn't I?
Won't quarrel about that. Go on.
Well, we got to make safe places for us to stay in, see? Get all the books we can. Science books. That's where men like you come in, see? We raid the museums. We'll even spy on the Martians. May not be so much we have to learn before... Listen. Just imagine this. 4 or 5 of their own fighting machines suddenly start off. Heat rays right and left. Not a Martian in them. Not a Martian in them, see? But men. Men who've learned the way how. May even be in our time. Gee. Imagine having one of them lovely things with its heat ray wide and free. We'd turn it on Martians. We'd turn it on men. We'd bring everybody down on their knees.
That's your plan.
Yeah. You, me, a few more of us. We'd own the world.
I see.
Hey. Hey, what's the matter? Where's it going?
Not to your world. Bye, stranger. Well, after parting with the artilleryman, I came at last to the Holland Tunnel, entered that silent tube, anxious to know the fate of the great city on the other side of the Hudson. Cautiously, I came out of the tunnel and made my way up Canal Street. Reached 14th Street, and there again were black powder and several bodies and an evil, ominous smell from the gratings of the cellars of some of the houses. I wandered up through the 30s and 40s, stood alone on Times Square, caught sight of a lean dog running down 7th Avenue with a piece of dark brown meat in his jaws and a pack of starving mongrels at his heels. Made a wide circle around me as though he feared I might prove a fresh competitor. Walked up Broadway in the direction of that strange powder, past silent shop windows, displaying their mute wares to empty sidewalks. Past the Capitol Theater, silent, dark. Past a shooting gallery where a row of empty guns faced an arrested line of wooden ducks. Near Columbus Circle, I noticed models of 1939 motor cars in the showrooms facing empty streets. Over the top of the General Motors building, I watched a flock of black birds circling in the sky. Hurried on. Suddenly, I caught sight of the hood of a Martian machine, standing somewhere in Central Park, gleaming in the late afternoon sun. An insane idea. I rushed recklessly across Columbus Circle and into the park. I climbed a small hill above the pond at 60th Street, and from there I could see standing in a silent row along the mall 19 of those great metal titans, their cowls empty, their steel arms hanging listlessly by their sides. I looked in vain for the monsters that inhabit those machines. Suddenly, my eyes were attracted to the immense flock of black birds that hovered directly below me. They circled to the ground. And there before my eyes, stark and silent, lay the Martians with the hungry birds pecking and tearing brown shreds of flesh from their dead bodies. Later, when their bodies were examined in laboratories, it was found that they were killed by the putrefactive and disease bacteria against which their systems were unprepared. Slain, after all, man's defenses had failed by the humblest thing that God, His wisdom, has put upon this earth. Before the cylinder fell, there was a general persuasion that through all the deep of space, no life existed beyond the petty surface of our minute sphere. Now we see further. Dim and wonderful is the vision I've conjured up in my mind of life spreading slowly from this little seedbed of the solar system throughout the inanimate vastnesses of sidereal space. But a remote dream, maybe. Maybe that the destruction of the Martians is only a reprieve to them and not to us. The future ordained, perhaps. Strange it now seems to sit in my peaceful study at Princeton, Writing down this last chapter of the record, begun at a deserted farm in Grover's Mill. Strange to watch children playing in the streets. Strange to see young people strolling on the green where the new spring grass heals the last black scars of a bruised earth. Strange to watch the sightseers enter the museum where the dissembled parts of a Martian machine are kept on public view. Strange when I recall the time when I first saw it. Bright and clean-cut, hard and silent under the dawn of that last great day. This is Orson Welles, ladies and gentlemen. Out of character, to assure you that the War of the Worlds has no further significance than as the holiday offering it was intended to be. The Mercury Theater's own radio version of dressing up in a sheet and jumping out of a bush and saying boo. Starting now, we couldn't soap all your windows and steal all your garden gates. By tomorrow night, so we did the best next thing. We annihilated the world before your very ears and utterly destroyed the CBS. You will be relieved, I hope, to learn that we didn't mean it and that both institutions are still open for business. So goodbye, everybody, and remember, please, for the next day or so, the terrible lesson you learned tonight. That grinning, glowing, globular invader of your living room is an inhabitant of the pumpkin patch, and if your doorbell rings and nobody's there, that was no Martian. It's Halloween.
Tonight, the Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations coast to coast has brought you The War of the World by H.G. Wells, the 17th in its weekly series of dramatic broadcasts featuring Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the air. Next week, we present a dramatization of 3 famous short stories. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
The Twisted Image by James Follett. 2 police officers discover the body of a local businessman's wife in the boot of his Rolls-Royce, stolen from outside his shop in the new town center. It should be an open and shut case, only the new town center won't be built for another 5 years. This was first broadcast on the 21st of April 1977.
What a lousy night.
You can have a kip in tomorrow morning.
It is tomorrow morning. Anyway, when my youngest is awake, everyone else has to be. I've often considered booking him under the Noise Abatement Act.
BD to Kilo 1.
Kilo 1 to BD, over.
Report your position, Kilo 1.
We're still waiting on the Oakhanger Road in the lay-by north of the Hart's Cross roundabout. Has anything happened yet? Over.
Thank you, Kilo 1. A message from Mr. Scott. Operation suspended. Return to normal duties.
Aren't you going to tell us what happened?
Return to normal duties, Kilo 1. And please observe correct RT procedure.
Roger, BD. Please observe correct RT procedure.
Bitchy.
Aren't they all? Oh, come on, let's go home.
Pass the board.
What's up?
Looking for an alert. No, nothing.
Should there be?
I thought there might be something about a white Rolls-Royce. One just went by while you were chatting up Miss World.
All right for some. I don't know how the traffic lads can stand these things. My back's killing me.
With a yobbo and a bird in it.
Probably a member of the South Sea Bubble.
Eh?
If you were a respectable married man with an 8-year-old daughter, you'd know that the South Sea Bubble is a group of weirdos who jump around dressed in Hawaiian guitars and grass skirts. They put on a concert tonight in Oakhanger.
Oh, yeah.
Some of our wonderful boys in uniform were complaining about the extra duties.
It was going like a bat out of hell.
About a minute ago.
About that?
They'll be a mile away by now. More if they're breaking the law. Let's go home.
I don't think we should take a look.
I should be home in bed before I have a divorce action on my hands.
Now, if we were to nip along the common riding track, we could lie and wait for them at the top of Telegraph Hill.
Go on, then. Do your autocross stuff.
I don't think this one's going to make it. Maybe they stopped off for a quick snog.
I'd stop off for a long one if I had the back of a Rolls to muck about in.
Yeah, this doesn't sound like a tea-break model. That's the lad. He's turning up the wick of it. We've lost him.
Okay. Don't stampede him into taking to the country. We don't want lawyers raiding the Widows and Orphans Fund for repairs to a Rolls.
There's a good lad. Showing a bit of respect.
This is the bit I always used to enjoy in my uniform days, the slow, nonchalant walk back to the offending driveway. Do it properly and you can break their spirit by the time you reach them. But in view of the inclement weather, we'll skip that bit. Oh, good evening, sir. I think it's a shame.
I'm sorry, we didn't realise...
All this hard practice you're putting in for Brooklands when it's been closed since the war.
Well, we didn't know you were the police. There's nothing on your car.
Ah, well, you see, when villains put signs on their cars that say, I am a villain, then we'll shove up signs that say, I am a policeman. Good evening, miss.
It was.
Nice car you've got here, sir. Perhaps you'd be good enough to tell me its number, save me having to walk round the back.
I don't know. We've only had it a little while.
Funny, there's no dents in it.
What's he on about?
Dents, miss. The sort of things goods get in them when they fall off the backs of lorries. May I see your driving licence, please?
I don't actually have it.
Well, we might as well tell them, Alan. I'll be in enough trouble as it is if I'm not home.
Same here, miss. How old are you?
16. Me dad will kill me if I'm not back...
Well, we won't go back to Oakhanger. We'll use the Northfell office. Have you got the keys, Colt?
Yes. Can't we go back to Oakhanger? That place brings on my chilblains.
You heard what the young lady's father will do. Don't want to push up the night's crime figures, do we? How much petrol in this car, sonny?
It's nearly on empty.
Northfell office it is then, Colt. We'll go and frighten the mice. Shove over, lad. You go on ahead, Colt. I'm not sure of the way.
Right.
Right, miss. Helen Susan Snowden, 77 New Park Drive, Tilford. And your boyfriend is Alan Stephen Roberts, a trainee motor mechanic of 79 New Park Drive.
Where is Alan?
Detective Sergeant Colt is taking his statement from him in the next room. Telephone number?
We're not on the phone yet. Nor are Alan's parents. It's a new estate. Oh, look, just charge us or whatever it is you do. I've got to go home. My dad will kill me.
You should have thought of that before taking a car without the owner's permission. Picking a Rolls was silly, you know. We might not have noticed if you treated yourselves to something a bit more modest.
It was the only one there.
Oakhanger is my hometown, miss. It's been ruined by the motor car. The streets are crammed with them. Half of them illegally parked.
It's true. There was only the Rolls.
You went to Oakhanger to see the South Sea Bubble concert.
Yes. There wasn't a bus for half an hour, so we went for a walk to look around.
Where to?
Well, I don't know. We'd never been to Oakhanger before.
Describe it.
Well, we went down the main street and then turned off into a sort of shopping centre, it looked like. All made into little squares with roads going off at each corner. It was spooky. I got frightened.
I've never heard of anyone being frightened of shops, except the prices, maybe.
The whole place was dead.
Shops usually are at night.
No, not dead like that.
Like what, then?
They were all empty.
Why go there in the first place?
Alan wanted to...
Alan wanted to what?
Oh, you know.
No.
He wanted to, well, you know, mess about.
In a shop doorway?
Yes. But I was too scared. There was no one about, not even cars, or it didn't seem natural.
You like an audience when you and Alan mess about?
You don't understand.
That's right, miss, help me.
Well, I'm trying to, aren't I?
If you say so. Was it a shopping precinct, this centre of yours?
In a way. But it wasn't like an ordinary shopping centre, you know what I mean?
No.
There were no lights in the window, sort of thing. We kept walking, but we got lost. Well, each square looked like the last one. And then I got scared. My dad
What
said
could you see in these shop windows?
Well, it was too dark. Most of them looked empty. We walked for ages and couldn't find anyone to tell us the way back to the town.
I thought you said you were already in the town.
Well, we couldn't have been, could we? There was no traffic noise. It was like... Oh, what's the use? You don't believe me? Well, it was like a ghost town. Except everything was new. All we wanted to do was ask someone the way. I was getting scared.
Where did
about
you
what my
find
dad
the rolls?
was parked outside a shop. There was a light on at the back. We could see the shadow of a man sitting behind a frosted glass screen, as if he was at a desk or something.
What sort of shop?
Fabric and curtain materials.
Mm-hmm.
Alan tapped on the glass, but the man didn't move. And then Alan shouted through the letterbox, and still he didn't move, even when Alan shouted hard. And then... Well, then, just as it started to rain, I noticed something odd about the dummies.
Well?
Well, they had cloth wrapped around them, all pinned up to make it look as if they were wearing evening dresses. Well, I'd never seen such materials. There were patterns of dragons with flames coming out their mouths. And there was this dummy with really funny material around her. She looked like she was wrapped in fire. But it was her eyes. They were slanting, like she was Chinese, and they followed you. You know, like those pictures on hoardings where their eyes follow you no matter where you stand, but you never see their eyes move. The dummy's eyes were like that, staring at me all the time, and then I started screaming. Alan had to hit me.
I see. You started screaming for no reason.
I've just told you why.
You described something you noticed before on hoardings, so why be frightened?
Well, I don't know why I was scared, do I? I mean, when you're scared, you don't say to yourself, why am I scared, do you? All I know is I started screaming, and the man in the shop didn't even move. Not even when Alan started his car up.
It was unlocked?
Yes.
How did he start it? Piece of wire from the coil to the battery?
Something like that.
What was the name of this shop?
I don't know. Living Fabrics or something.
The Living Fabric Centre?
Something like that.
Listen, Miss Snowden. Oakhanger is an old-fashioned town with old-fashioned streets and very old-fashioned shops. There's nothing there that even remotely resembles this shopping centre you describe. But there is a shop called the Living Fabric Centre. It's an old place that's been smartened up. And it's just across the road from my office in Oakhanger Police Headquarters.
Both stories match.
Kids get themselves worked up into a trance at these concerts. Oh, hell, look at the time. My wife will be sitting at home writing letters to solicitors.
Aren't you down for some leave?
Yeah, 3 days. I'll spend it patching up our marriage. The last thing I want is a court appearance over a lousy taking without owner's consent.
Yeah.
We'd better put the rolls in the garage and lock up. Come on, you two. We'll run you home.
Aren't you going to charge us?
It's your lucky day. I'm feeling generous and the mice have eaten the charge sheets.
Oh, thank you.
I shouldn't celebrate just yet. The roll's owner could always prosecute on his own account.
Is that turning on the right? On a corner will be fine. The road's not made up yet.
Remember what I said. Not all the fuzz are as good-natured and as amiable as I am.
You've been very kind. We won't do it again.
Thank you very much, sir.
What'll you tell your parents?
We'll think of something.
With your imagination, I should have got you to dream up a story for my wife. Well, good night. And stay out of trouble.
Good night, sir. And thank you very much indeed.
Home, Colt. What are you grinning at?
You're getting soft in your old age.
Well, they seem decent enough kids. From now on, they'll think nothing but good of the police force. They'll get married, have kids of their own, and bring them up as law-abiding citizens. Well, come on, to hell with the speed limit. I want to get home.
Morning.
Get out of my chair.
Sorry.
Why is the place crawling with uniforms?
Protest rally this afternoon over the town centre redevelopment.
Oh, yeah.
I've traced the index on that Rolls Royce. It belongs to a David Peter Kingham, Coombe Copse, Oakhanger. The index letters match his initials.
Personalised number plates. One of the customs of the rich. I thought we agreed to swing the whole thing out of traffic.
Oh, well, they're up to their eyes over the rally. They asked if we'd deal with the problem as we found it.
And you said yes?
Well, they were very polite. This David Kingham hasn't reported his card as missing.
Well, ring him up and tell him to come and collect it.
It's still over at Northfell.
I told you to bring it here first thing.
Yeah, there's a problem. London issued the number. They say it was for an MGB, not a Rolls.
All right, so he's transferred the number to his Rolls. If it matches his initials, it's
There's
pretty
another problem.
Oh, no.
How much do you think a new braking system will cost for a Rolls?
A larger packet than the ones you and I see each month. Why?
Do you remember thumping the rear end on a pothole or something when you drove it last night?
No. Why? What's the matter?
Must have been those two kids then. When I went to collect it this morning, I noticed a pool of brake fluid on the floor of the garage, right under the rear axle. That's why I didn't drive it back from Northfell.
I was hoping for a nice, quiet Sunday. Come on, let's go and take a look.
Right. There, see? Pool of it. It's larger now than when I first saw it.
It was perfectly okay when I drove it last night.
What are you doing?
It's odd. The brake pedal feels firm enough. It should be spongy with all that fluid leaking out. It could be something broken in the boot. Let's have a closer look. You'd better get this boot open, Colt. It isn't brake fluid. It's blood. I thought your keys could open anything.
It's always the last one that fits. Wasn't it Paul Jennings who wrote about the hostility of inanimate objects towards man?
The Sunday papers will be writing about my hostility towards you if you don't get this boot open.
Jennings was right.
Oh. Oh. This should make my divorce a dead cert.
Human female.
10 out of 10.
Aged 24 to 30. Weight would have been around 40 kilos, including blood which wasn't supplied. Had a child around 2 years ago, and this would have been another in 30 weeks. Length 150 centimetres, quite small. Asian bone structure, possibly Cantonese, but I'm not an anthropologist. A sandwich?
No, thanks. COD.
Is that how you came by her?
Cause of death.
Sure. Well, that's good.
No, thanks.
Manually induced asphyxia. It's spelt with a Y.
Oh.
A foot strangulation. And a clumsy job done on her afterwards. It was this tibia that punctured the polythene bag and caused the blood to leak out. Quite definitely foul play.
There was a wedding ring. I tried to get it off.
It's quite easy when they're dead. Here. Damn. No mustard in this one.
Can you let me have a report later today?
Now, who would I get to type it on a Sunday? First thing in the morning. I'm sure you won't try one of these. My wife cures her own ham.
Detective Inspector Simmons' office. Yes, he's here now.
Mr. Scott. No. Good afternoon, sir. Yes, we expect to make an arrest in 12 hours, so there won't be any need to set up a... thank you, sir, but there's my leave, so if... He trusts his coat. Says he's happy to leave the whole affair in my hands. Naturally, I didn't tell him the kids who nicked the rolls gave us false names and addresses.
Their descriptions have been circulated. You reckon they're involved?
No, they took the rolls just as they said. I only wish I'd shown them more of my customary ruthlessness. They seem decent kids, too. Goody. What's that row?
Town centre protest rally.
Shut that window. These things are rare now.
Powder compacts?
Yeah, women don't use them as much as they used to. I bought the wife one and she's never looked at it. But then she doesn't like anything I buy her.
Any inscription?
To my darling Lee San on our first anniversary from your loving husband, David. Well, that's funny.
What?
That rabble-rouser outside just said something about the new town centre having squares.
Oh, there's film in this camera. 3 exposures used.
Now, listen a minute.
Well, I don't know what they're getting so worked up about. New town centre won't be built for at least 5 years, by which time most of them will have moved.
Time we moved in on David Peter Kingham.
Smart place.
You have to have somewhere decent to keep a Rolls-Royce. They're fussy about the homes they go to.
Yes?
Oh, good morning. I'm Detective Inspector Simmons, and this is my colleague, Detective Sergeant Colt.
Oh, madam.
O'Kanger, CID. Is Mr. Kingham at home, please?
No.
When will he be in?
Why do you want him?
We'd like to ask him a few questions.
Well, you'd better come in. I'm David's mother-in-law. I'm looking after the children while he's abroad.
Mother-in-law?
Yes.
Where is he, Mrs.
Francis. David's in Hong Kong.
I see.
Can I help?
When will he be back?
Not for 2 weeks. Is there...
Why hasn't his car been reported missing?
Well, it's not. I used it this morning to take the children to school.
How many cars has he got?
Well, only one. An MGB.
What about a white Rolls-Royce?
Oh, that only exists in his dreams. It's his great ambition to own one. Maybe he will one day. He's ambitious and the shop's doing well.
What shop is that, Mrs. Francis?
You're not very observant for policemen, are you? The Living Fabric Centre, right opposite the Oakhanger police station.
How many branches are there?
Only one at the moment.
And what's he doing in Hong Kong?
Supposing you tell me what all this is about.
One thing at a time, Mrs. Francis. If you would tell me what your son-in-law is doing in Hong Kong...
He's gone there to look for new textile designs. David's like that. He wanted to see for himself what is available, rather than rely on the tastes of importers.
When did he leave the country?
4 days ago. What is all this about?
We're making inquiries about his wife.
Caroline. Why?
It's hard to believe she's your daughter.
Caroline is dead.
How did you find out?
What are you two playing at? Caroline's been dead for 6 months now.
Give us that envelope, Colt.
Here you are, sir.
Is this her?
Of course not. Caroline didn't look like that. What do you think I am?
Give us time and we'll find out, Mrs. Francis.
Is this normal, to come around asking horrid questions? Look, this is Caroline. Did she look Chinese? Do I look Chinese? Well...
So our David Peter Kingham is leading a double life.
Looks like it. I suppose this Chinese girl is his wife.
To my darling Lee San on our first anniversary, from your loving husband, David.
Maybe a bigamous double life if he married Lee San before his first wife died. Pity there's no date engraved on that wedding ring.
He's made previous trips to Hong Kong which he's kept from his mother-in-law, found the lovely Lee San, brought her home, and set her up in a flat.
And bought a Rolls-Royce.
Acted out his fantasy.
So he must have other branches to be able to afford it.
Like the one those kids found the Rolls parked outside.
Yeah.
It's odd we haven't been able to find it.
Even odder that we haven't been able to trace those kids. Oh, hell. That idiot's blocked the road. Why don't those uniforms have him for obstruction?
Any theories on why he killed her?
Maybe she was blackmailing him. Maybe she saw him as a likely sponge to be squeezed when she first met him in Hong Kong. Yeah. Or maybe he discovered he couldn't afford to run 2 cars, 2 homes and 2 wives. So he decided to liquidate some of his assets.
That is a very sick joke.
We're looking for a very sick man. Oh, take me home. I'll have some explaining to do about my leave. No, I haven't.
Morning. You're late.
Shut up and get out of my chair.
Outburst of passion when the alarm clock went off. Telegram for you.
You work your guts out to provide him with a home.
Anyway, he didn't kill his first wife. She died during a kidney transplant operation.
Where's that Rolls?
Still locked up in the North Fell office.
I asked you to shift it here into the station yard. Haven't you got enough sense to realise it's asking for trouble leaving a car worth several thousand at that abandoned hole?
All the spare parking spaces are needed for the extra mobiles being drafted in to deal with the demos. Does it matter?
Not if you don't mind driving out there to recheck the chassis number you were supposed to write down.
Why?
Rolls-Royce say they haven't issued such a number. It's too high.
I double-checked.
Well, go back and triple-check. According to this telegram, Rolls-Royce say that at the present rate of production, they don't expect to issue this chassis number for at least another 5 years.
I'll go right away.
Be back by 2. We're going to the Home Office Immigration Department at Croydon.
No.
Then we toddle along to the Passport Office in Petty France. Our lovely Lee San must be in someone's records.
Maybe he brought her into the country rolled up in a bolt of cloth. She's small enough.
Was small enough. Stop when you see a brick wall.
Why?
So I can beat my head against it. What am I going to tell Scott?
The truth?
You'll skin me. The only reason he hasn't called in the RCS is because I promised an immediate arrest. I was banking on the immigration office finding something. It's crazy. We've got a murder, definite. We've got a body, definite. And we've got a #1 suspect we can't lay our hands on.
What about flying out to Hong Kong?
With the Hong Kong police watching him on a 24-hour surveillance for us? What are you going to say to justify drawing 2,000 or 3,000 in expenses?
Maybe the photographs from the film and the camera will tell us something. The lab promised to have them on your desk by the time we got back.
Mrs. Francis was lying.
Eh?
She said she'd never seen Lee San. Look, Lee San and our Mrs. Francis posing outside the Kingham House. And look, the lovely Lee San and Mrs. Francis sitting on the bumper of a Rolls-Royce parked in the Kingham Drive. Yes. Come on, Colt.
Can I have another look at those photos before we see her?
Yeah. What's the matter?
Something that's been worrying me. Now, this peach tree in the photograph.
Yeah.
That one over there on the front lawn. And in the photograph, it looks about 5 or 6 years old. Now look at the one over there. See?
It looks like a sapling.
It is. That thing flapping in the breeze is a nurseryman's label.
So, the original tree died and they planted a new one.
Now take another look at that tree in the photograph. I don't think it could have died. It's in a sheltered, well-drained spot. Ideal for a peach. And it looks perfectly healthy.
Fascinating. Let's go and see Mrs. Francis.
Can I look around the garden?
Okay. I'll talk to Mrs. Francis while you talk to your peach tree. Something for you to bark up.
I tell you, I've never seen her before.
I see. So she was just someone who happened to be passing when the picture was taken, who just happened to sit beside you on the bumper, and you just happened not to notice. Is that it?
Photographs can be faked.
No, Mrs. Francis. It is possible to use negatives in such a way as to produce fake photographs, but we have the negatives of these pictures, and they're perfect.
David was a keen photographer. He used to spend hours in his darkroom.
Was a keen photographer?
He gave it up. The shop took up all his time, so he sold his equipment. I can show you pictures he's taken indoors, and yet they look like the outdoors, because he took them against a background picture. David was clever like that.
I doubt if he was clever enough to fake this picture, Mrs. Francis.
But it can't be me. I've never worn my hair like that, for one thing. It doesn't make sense.
The only thing that doesn't make sense is why you insist that you've never seen Lee San. Well, we'll call again tomorrow.
I might be out.
We'll wait, Mrs. Francis, and then we'll ask you the same questions and show you the same photographs. And then we'll come the following day, and the day after that. We'll keep coming, Mrs. Francis, day after day. And when you draw your curtains at night, you'll see our car outside, waiting.
You wouldn't do this to me if David was here.
If David was here, we probably wouldn't have to. Come on, back to the office.
They've spent a lot of time and money on this garden. Not one rose tree's got black spot, and it's a bad year for it.
She denies all knowledge of Lee San.
Been planned so there's something in flower all year round.
She even suggested the photographs had been faked.
I reckon that conifer was only planted this year.
And she had the nerve to say it must be someone made up to look like her.
Show me.
It's definitely her.
Conifers shoot up given the right conditions, but that one seems to have shrunk.
Are you still going on about the garden?
It's about 15 foot high in the photograph. It had only come up to the top of my head when I stood beside it just now.
You can have another look tomorrow. I'm going to keep the pressure up until she decides to talk.
And it's not only the conifer.
Colt, what are you going on about?
BD to Kilo 1.
Kilo 1 to BD, over.
Is Detective Inspector Simmons with you, Kilo 1? Over.
Sitting beside me.
Oh, no.
State your position, please, Kilo 1. Over.
We're on the Coombe Copse Park Estate. Over.
Thank you, Kilo 1. Message from Mr. Scott. Go to Sylvan House on Coombe Copse Park Estate and see Councillor Butcher regarding windows broken by vandals.
Why me?
Councillor Butcher is chairman of the Oakhanger Planning Committee. Mr. Scott would prefer a senior officer to visit him. Please acknowledge Kilo 1.
Roger, BD.
And Kilo 1, Mr. Scott stresses that Councillor Butcher be treated with tact.
It's wasting ratepayers' money sending a detective inspector. Even one of your dimmest constables would have been able to work out who did it. That blasted troublemaking Red, Paul Holden.
Who is he, sir?
Oh, you people knew them all. He's the rogue who's stirring up the opposition to the town centre redevelopment scheme.
Oh, yes, we've seen and heard him in action.
Never had this sort of trouble until he moved into the district. Well, he's just in it for himself, trying to whip up a following for when he stands in the council election.
Did you actually see him breaking the windows?
Didn't have to. Every stone was wrapped in one of his handbills. There. See?
Wake up, you dreaming squires of Oakhanger. The days when you could dictate to the masses are over.
Blasted Red. I don't know why people listen to him. The new town centre is just what Oakhanger needs. New shops, big ones to attract multiples, a play area where mothers can leave their kids, fountains, the lot. And all laid out in a series of squares so it doesn't have the impersonal atmosphere of a new centre. The Oakhanger Chamber of Commerce is 100% in favour of the plan.
Yes, but because the stones were wrapped in these handbills,
Would you like
it
to see
doesn't...
them? Yeah. 2 years' work by the architects department. All this area here will be cleared and family units moved out to new flats on the edge of the town. That's the first stage, clearing the decks. After that, we'll build the multi-storey car park and the new police station for you fellas, eh? And this area here will be devoted to the shops. Over 200 of them.
A lot of shops, sir.
Yeah, well, options have already been taken up on half of them. Deacons, Parkland Gardening, Living Fabric Centre, Swanton.
The Living Fabric Centre?
That's right. David Kingham. Lives a few doors away. Put his name down for 3 units to be made into one shop. Bet you chaps know him. His shop's right opposite the police station.
Do you know his wife, sir?
Well, I used to. Caroline. Died a while back. Damn shame.
Have you ever seen him with this woman before?
Are we getting a bit off the subject?
Have you ever seen her before?
Can't say I have. I don't pry into my neighbours' affairs.
What do you know about him?
Well, not much. He's shrewd, you know. He took up the options on 3 shops, even though they won't be ready for another 4 to 5 years. He said his business will have expanded so much by then that he'll need larger premises.
What sort of car does he drive?
Well, you people should know that. An MG. What's this got to do with my windows?
Have you ever seen him with a Rolls-Royce?
Oh, I've heard him talk about one.
So he has got one?
He's talked of owning one. You know what he said? That his ambition was not to actually own one, but to be able to afford to own one. You've got to hand it to him. Should go a long way.
He already has. Yes, well, thank you very much indeed, Inspector. You've been extremely cooperative. Yes, a very good line. Well, 2 o'clock in this country. PM. That's right, in the afternoon. Well, sayonara. Oh, is it? Sorry, I thought it was Chinese. Goodbye, Inspector. Yes, you call when he's about to leave. Bye now. Good grief. Inspector Channing of the Hong Kong Police. He's having Kingham watched day and night by one of his best undercover agents.
Only one?
A police woman. Day and night. Chinese have a more practical approach to surveillance than we have. You smell of Eastern promise. Anything?
There's 5 Chinese restaurants in the area. I must count the takeaways. None of them know anything about Lee San.
Well, we can forget the theory that he met her in Hong Kong. Inspector Channing said this is his first visit.
How can you be so sure?
Seems they have an efficient system for filing landing cards. Channing's going to maintain this watch and call me when Kingham's about to leave. His return ticket is for the 25th. He'll be arriving at Heathrow at 15:20 on the 27th.
Haven't you had the feeling about this case there's something odd? Something Not right?
No. The only thing that's not right is your imagination.
But this 5-year period that keeps
Your
coming up.
wild imagination won't close this case. Now, I want
Supposing he doesn't come back.
He'll be watched at every refueling stop to make certain he does.
And we just sit around until he shows up.
You wouldn't want to sit around if you had the sort of fires lit under you that are being lit under me. There's still this camera. The Cosmatic TriStar 80.
Scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Better than being stretched over it. Well, keep looking for those kids.
Well, where are you going?
To see Scientific and Optical Measuring Limited, sole importers of the Cosmatic TriStar camera.
And the cosmetic microscopes, Mr. Simmons.
I see.
We import all cosmetic optical equipment, and very good it is too. You wouldn't believe that such a so-called backward country could make such
So
fine...
you couldn't tell me much about an individual camera. You merely pass on the goods to retailers.
We inspect and test every instrument before repacking them with an English language handbook and a guarantee card.
Do you keep a record of camera serial numbers?
We allocate the serial numbers. We have an engraving machine for that very purpose. Now, how can I help you?
I'd like to know everything you can tell me about this, please. When it was imported, when you released it, the name of the retailer you sold it to.
Hold on, Mr. Simmons. One thing at a time. May I?
Oh, yes, sir.
Thank you. Is there a film in it? I have to open it to look at the serial number.
Go ahead. It's 5136.
I doubt it, Mr. Simmons. Oh.
5136.
Yes. I think there's been a mistake. One of our
What
engravers...
mistake?
Just a second, Mr. Simmons. Yes. 513. That's very odd.
What is?
I don't see how we could make a mistake. All instruments pass through our works in batches of 10 on a tray. Each inspector has to sign for them before passing them on to the next department and check that the serial numbers agree with the inspection note. Security, you understand.
Yeah.
It means that the serial number on each camera is checked at least 6 times before it leaves us.
What's wrong with it?
The serial number's far too high, up in the 5000 series. That wall chart is the sales forecast for this camera based on the last 6 months' figures. 1,000 a year. So we won't be issuing the serial number on this camera for another 5 years. Mr. Simmons, is anything the matter?
No.
Well, I must admit I'm...
Baffled?
Well, yes.
That makes 2 of us. Except I'm getting used to it. You can get out of my chair.
Sorry.
Oh, got a cigarette?
Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
I gather there's been a reaction to the report.
Loud and long.
Yeah, I could hear it from here.
I'm thinking of jacking it in.
Oh, can I have your chair? Mine doesn't swivel.
I was turned slowly on the spit while Scott basted me with a tirade of vitriolic scorn. After that, the CC carved me into neat slices with the edge of his tongue.
Painful. You've only just lit one.
Come on, where are they?
Where are what?
All the stuff from the Rolls-Royce, the photographs, Lee Sands things, they were in this drawer.
I haven't touched them.
You were sitting at this desk when I came in.
Yeah, but I didn't open your drawers.
And the camera's gone.
You're not supposed to keep exhibits in your desk. Maybe Mr. Scott had them moved.
I have a good mind to jack the whole business in here, and now. Found myself a cushy number as a security officer.
That'll please a few.
That's why I'm not going to do it.
So what do we do now?
David Kingham is due back the day after tomorrow. I'm going to have this case completely sewn up, even if we have to work all night. We're going to start from scratch, go over that Rolls from bumper to bumper, talk to that mad pathologist, even if I have to eat his sandwiches. Put the screws on Mrs. Francis. Well, what do you reckon?
Okay. Where do we start?
With the Rolls. Go and get me the keys to the North Fell office.
It's gone.
Did you give anyone the authority to move it?
No.
Sure?
Positive.
Have you seen it in headquarters car park?
No. If anyone would have wanted to move it, they'd have had to come to me for the keys.
Those bastards have taken the case from me and haven't had the guts to say so.
The bloodstain's gone. Look. There's no sign of it.
I suppose they thought they'd clean up properly while they were at it.
Yeah, how could they get a stain that size out of concrete?
I remember a TV play about someone who was kicked out of his job. He wasn't sacked outright, he was eased out gradually. First his parking place disappeared, then he was given a smaller desk, then his desk was moved into the main office. Each day it was moved nearer the door, until one day he didn't bother to show up. He was about 5'10", dark hair, and forever eating sandwiches.
I'm sorry, Inspector Simmons. No one of that description works in the path department of this hospital.
But he examined a body. He gave me a report.
See, can I see it, please?
Well, no, it was verbal. He promised to follow it up with a written report, but never did.
What was his name?
Hell, I don't know. What was his name, Colt?
I don't know.
You bloody well should know.
I wasn't with you.
Oh, all right, then. I'd like to see the body of the Chinese girl.
When was it brought in?
The 6th.
Of this month?
Of course.
I think you must be mistaken. We received nothing on the 6th. And it was a Sunday. The lab would have been closed.
Now, look here. Now, you look, Doctor. She was brought here on the 6th. The Chinese girl, 5'0", long black hair. Detective Sergeant Colt and I brought her here. We waited in the outer room while the pathologist carried out an on-the-spot examination, so I know she's here, and I'm not leaving...
Will you please give me those papers? What are you doing? Inspector, please. Look, can't you stop him?
Do you tell me where she is, or do I yank all these out?
Now, look, if you think you can just walk in here and
where
behave
is she?
It's mad.
Mr. Simmons, look, don't you think we... Shut up, Colt! Well, Doctor, who told you to hide her, and where is she now?
I've no idea what you're talking about.
Satisfied?
Well, I'm not leaving until you tell me what you've done with her.
Will you please let go?
Mr. Simmons, shut up, Colt.
Look, please believe me, Inspector. I know nothing about the body of a Chinese girl. Look, you've seen our records.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Doctor. It was inexcusable behavior.
We've both been under a bit of strain lately.
I'm sorry.
How much sleep has he had recently?
He's been on the go for 2 days solid.
Look, Inspector.
Yeah.
Some friendly advice. I'll give you a couple of tablets. Go home, take them with a glass of water, and go straight to bed. I'll knock you out for 24 hours. You'll wake up ready for anything.
I could have done with them a few days ago. And I will always look back with affection on my 10 years with O'Kanger CID. Yours sincerely. Got an envelope?
No.
Although we haven't got a case against him, I've arranged for you to collect Kingham at Heathrow. The details are in the tray. What's the matter?
Nothing.
Now listen, Colt. Simmons? Oh, yes. Put him through. Hello, Inspector. Yes, indeed. And you? Yes, an excellent line. Before you start, Inspector, Detective Sergeant Colt is now handling the case. I'll hand you... He's not? I see. When did this happen? How old was she? Yes, terrible. I'm sorry, Inspector, I never thought such a thing could happen. What was her name? Yes. Detective Sergeant Colt will be in touch. Thank you for calling. Goodbye.
Kingham's done in another girl?
Kingham has put off his return flight for another week. And the girl, the undercover agent Channing assigned to watch him day and night, has handed in a notice. She and Kingham have got engaged. She was one of Channing's best girls. Her name is Lee San. You and I are going to keep a close watch on David Peter Kingham in future.
Nightmare World by Wally K. Daly, Gary Henderson, and Old Man Jenkins head up a mountain road to Hill House every November 13th. But on their ascent this year, the mountain begins to shake like hell on earth. And Gary? He meets himself coming back.
We present Nightmare World by Wally K. Daly, with James Lawrenson as Gary, Nigel Anthony as Jenkins, and Peter Jeffrey as A.P. Smith. The play is set in Britain in the present day. Nightmare World.
Yes. Oh, it's you.
It's the 13th of November again.
Years really flown by.
They do, don't they?
Like to come in?
No. I'll wait by the car as usual, if it's all the same to you.
Fine. The boot's open if you want to pop your gear in there.
I'll do that.
I won't be a minute. I'll just get my coat. Kate, I'm just going out for a while.
Ow!
It's Jenkins, the old man I befriended. I'm taking him up to Hill House again.
Why can't he get somebody else to take him? Get a taxi or something. The mountain road's lethal in this weather.
I shan't be long.
Don't go, Gary.
I've got to.
You've got to. Why?
Well, I don't know, really. Habit, I suppose. He's just a nice old boy. Every year when he arrives, I give him a lift. Simple as that. He's sort of come to depend on me.
Don't go.
I won't be long. I'm afraid this has got to be the last time, Mr. Jenkins. My wife's not too happy about my going off to the mountain at this time of night. Okay. Last time.
I hope so, Mr. Henderson. I truly hope so.
I've looked. Now sit down properly.
It's all outside.
It's London, darling. That's what cities look like from the sky.
But they're moving.
It's only traffic. The rest are street lights, houses, offices. Now sit down.
We are now making our final approach to Heathrow Airport.
Right, you heard the man. Now down you get.
Oh, Mum, I won't be able to see.
You will be able to see. Now sit down.
All aboard the Skylark! Anyone not for the revolving restaurant and a night of drinking debauchery, speak now or forever hold his peace.
I'm already holding my peace, thank you very much.
Right. All aboard! Okay. Press the magic button. Hang on to your stomachs, folks. 36 floors to go.
Have you eaten up there?
No. Eating 36 stories up is too near to dining on the plane. I'm always pleased to see its beacon. Lets me know we're on the homeward straight.
Sorry about the delay, 625. You are now cleared to make your final approach.
No problem, Control. Runway in view 2 miles ahead and approaching as directed.
Would you then make your way to gate 32 rather than gate 16?
Problem?
Malfunctioning baggage loader.
Okay, message re-gate 32 received.
What's that?
Good Lord.
Look, switch on the backup. We've lost everything here.
I already have. There's no power.
Look, get the alarm going.
Stairs.
God.
Oh, great. Wonderful. That is all we need to make our life complete. Problems?
Oh, there's no headlights, no power. It's obviously a loose connection. I've got a torch in here somewhere. I'll go and check. At least no, that'll be working. New batteries a couple of days back. Here we go. Oh, would you believe it?
Mr. Henderson, don't we usually see the lights of your hometown from here?
Of course we... Oh, that's strange. I'm going to go over to the edge of the road and check it out from there. This is crazy.
Put a shilling in the meter, someone. We can't see a thing back here.
Look, Mummy. All the lights in the city have gone out as well.
Keep quiet. The kid's right. It's totally blacked out down there. Keep
It's impossible. Both backup systems can't be down. I checked the battery readings myself.
Cool it, Peter. There's enough panic growing back there without you joining in the act.
But no landing lights. No engines, no nothing.
I said cool it. I've floated this bird down 100 times in the simulator and never lost a passenger yet.
Without any airport lights and a 36-story hotel directly in your flight path.
Good point.
Well, somebody do something.
I'll certainly do something. It's bad enough the lift's breaking down. Disgrace the emergency lights don't work.
What are you going to do then? Write a letter of complaint to the manager?
I most certainly am going to write.
Whoever did that, pack it up. Being trapped is not funny. It's bad enough being trapped in the lift.
Listen.
What?
It's fun. No! There it is, the hotel! Get ahead now! Back away! Back away! Too close! We're too close! We're not going to...
Now, go back upstairs and listen to your radio. That should still be working. It doesn't. I tried. Lorna, listen. Oh, no. Now what? What is it, Mum? Oh, I don't know. Look, come here, the pair of you, and hang on to me. Oh, shit, Gary, I'm all right. Oh, Gary, where are you? Hang on, love.
And so began the terror.
What is it? What's going on? Oh, the whole mountain is shaking through its foundations. It's got to be a massive earthquake.
No, not an earthquake. Much more than just an earthquake, Mr. Henderson. As if the very foundation of the world was on the move.
It's something to do with Holby. I'm sure that's where the noise is coming from.
You could be right, Mr. Henderson. You could indeed be right.
What? What the devil? Oh, can someone kindly provide me with some light?
We're trying to find some candles, Prime Minister.
Who's that?
Chivers.
Oh, what on earth's going on, Chivers? And what are you doing in my bedroom?
It's rather hard to say what's going on, sir. There would appear to be some sort of massive blackout throughout London. I came up here as soon as it descended, in case you awoke.
How long have we been blacked out?
Oh, a little less than a minute now.
How about communications?
Appear to be gone as well, sir. Battery's not working either for some reason, hence the hunt for candles.
Red phone?
First thing I checked. Dead.
Right. Better start rounding the cabinet up.
And so ended the first phase of the nightmare.
What nightmare?
A quotation, that is all.
Huh?
An ancient text I stumbled across once. Nightmare World. Try your torch again. And voila! On the mountain there was light.
How did you know it would work?
Merely a guess. You look to the road.
The car headlamps are back on.
Correct. Chances are the car is working once more. And I'm sure you'll want to be on your way home as quickly as possible to ensure everything is as it should be. So, perhaps we could go on to the house?
Oh, I know.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, the internal lines are now functioning, but calls worldwide have still not been reinstated.
What exactly has happened, Prime Minister?
If I knew that, Freddie, I wouldn't have dragged you from your bed to seek your advice, now would I?
No, sorry.
What we do know is sketchy, but fairly horrendous. For just over 1 minute, about 1 minute 20 seconds, the whole country suffered the total loss of all forms of electrical power. A few planes and helicopters managed to coast to a safe landing, but the bulk of them went down, with appropriate loss of life and damage to property. Any figures, Pamela?
There's no way of ascertaining exact casualties. Reports are still coming in.
Prime Minister?
Yes?
The Chief Scientific Officer's arrived.
Well, tell them to send him straight in.
Do you think this blackout could have been induced by a foreign power? I mean, a new weapon of some sort, perhaps?
Well, if it was, and they'd struck, there wouldn't have been a thing we could have done about it. We were totally defenseless. As nobody did strike for the moment, I'm going to presume it is not a man-made phenomenon.
What's going on, officer? It's taken me nearly an hour to do what's usually a 15-minute trip.
Sorry, sir. Bit of a problem in town.
Huh?
You're going to have to turn around and go back with the rest.
Go back where? I live here. Oh, I've family are in there.
I'm afraid it makes no odds, sir. The military have taken charge and nobody is to be allowed in or out.
Hey?
Holby is, for the time being, closed down.
So we have now confirmed that the whole country was affected. John O'Groats to Land's End, exactly the same story. As to the rest of the world, we can't be sure. We can only surmise.
What about satellite communications?
They were also affected by the power loss. At this moment in time, they are still not functioning.
Sir?
Yes? What is it, Chivers?
Sorry to interrupt, but the news has just come in, sir, and I thought you'd want to know. It's Holby.
Holby?
Yes, sir. Near Birmingham.
Well, come on then, spit it out. What's happened to Holby?
It's no good trying to keep a homeboy out of his hometown. I know more ways of getting into Holby than a few police and soldiers can invent to keep me out. Well, what the hell has happened in there? Right. Just one final push. And I'm through. Oh, no. No. Well, it's just not possible. No. What's happened?
Hey, you! What do you think you're doing? This place is out of bounds! Stay where you are! You're under arrest! After him, lads! Don't let him get away! Shoot! Shoot!
No.
Right. I want a total blackout on this one. Not one word to be made public. If this gets out, there'll be panic in the streets. George, do you have an RM man in the area?
A.P. Smith's in Birmingham, sir. One of the best.
Right. Get him in there. He's in charge. Martial law declared. And I want a report from him at the double.
Very good, sir.
Across the whole of the world, satellite communication is still very intermittent, but we do hope to be able to bring you an update on the
It
international...
started for me one stormy night in England, but the nightmare, it appeared, had come to wrap the world.
Reports are still coming in from the Heathrow area, where, in what is believed to be the most serious of tonight's accidents, a 477 is reported to have crashed into the 36-storey Baylis Hotel.
And one miraculous survivor.
The most amazing escape was a child of 7 who was left dangling on the edge of the
Good.
25 stories in the air.
Be patient, young man. Old bones move slow. Come in, Mr. Henderson. You don't look terribly well.
It's gone. Can you believe that? It's gone.
Gone? The Holby has disappeared off the face of the earth.
May I suggest we go through and get you a drink?
Oh, no. I've got to call someone. My wife, my family, the town, they've all gone.
Satellites are slowly coming back online. In every country we've been able to contact to date, a town the equivalent size of Holby has disappeared off the face of the earth. In India, Quillan has gone. In Nigeria, Oyo. Australia has lost Geelong. In Sudan, Al Ubaid. In Israel, Bethlehem. The list is endless and global. Largest reported to date is Worcester in America. The smallest, Laredo in Spain. The feeling in the department is that when the final figures are in the region of 6 million people will have been removed in one fell swoop.
Could it perhaps have been hit by a bomb?
I obviously haven't explained myself very well. There was no sign of any attack. It simply wasn't there anymore.
The towns don't simply disappear, Mr. Henderson. I think you've been under a great deal of strain. It's starting to affect your reason.
You're not listening to me, Jenkins. It's gone, huh? My wife, my children, my 7-year-old bedridden mother all disappear, along with my hometown, and you suggest my imagination is working overtime. But don't forget, if it wasn't for you, I would have been there with them.
True. It's time we went down there and checked it together. Who knows what we may discover?
Well, 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 now, isn't this all fascinating, Colonel? Not a civvy to be seen as far as the eye can see, and thousands of soldiers on the skyline ensuring that that's the way it stays.
Dash creepy, if you ask me. Nothing but a vast, empty plain for miles. It has the feel of a cemetery without stones.
I must confess it never struck me as the most lively of towns in the first place. Absolutely fascinating. No damage, no giant hole indicating the fall of a massive meteor that would explain everything in a twinkling. No vast atomic bomb crater that would be equally self-explanatory. Instead, nothing amiss whatsoever. A goodly puzzle, I'd say.
Exactly is your part in all this, Mr. Smith?
Part?
Well, your papers make it clear enough you're Ministry of Defense and ostensibly in charge of the operation here.
In charge, Colonel. In charge. If, since my recent arrival, I've somehow inadvertently given the impression I was only ostensibly in charge, please forgive me.
Point taken, Mr. Smith. So, exactly what department do you come under that bestows such authority over the military?
RM section.
RM?
In the far-gone mists of the department being set up some 100-odd years ago, letters used to me in religious manifestations.
Really?
A sort of early ministerial ghostbusters, you might say. Well, over the years, it's come to include anything that smacks of otherworldly.
Flying saucers and what have you?
Well, they've become somewhat passé of late, but yes, anything otherworldly, in fact.
And this?
This?
A town going missing. Ever come across the likes of this before?
No, can't say I have. And I must admit, I can't wait to see what happens next.
Hold on fire!
There, didn't have too long to wait, did I?
No! Don't run away, Mr. Henderson. You must stay.
I have no intention of being taken prisoner. I want to be free to find out what is going on and why this thing hasn't been made public.
It is best that you stay.
You both stay. Hey, you old man, get your hand out your pocket. What the hell?
My apologies to you both, but I do have work to do, and it would probably be better all round if you only took Mr. Henderson into custody. Oh, yes, perhaps you'd both be kind enough to forget I was here in the first place. All right?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Henderson?
Yes.
Good. Well, I'd better be on my way.
Right, you! I'm taking you in!
Morgen Bonn, hier ist London.
Morgen
Bonn, hier ist London. Können Sie uns hören? Ja, vielen Dank.
How long before it's all rigged up and ready to go?
It shouldn't be too long, sir. Most of the banks of televisions are now in place. It's only a matter of linking them into the council.
I see. So what else needs doing before we're underway?
We need to allocate a channel to each country taking part and then tune them to the appropriate satellite.
Are they all back in action now?
Pictures are a little hazy and sound is not all it might be.
So the conference can go ahead?
Providing the other countries have managed to get the necessary equipment together as quickly as we have, we could be underway in half an hour.
Good, and don't worry about the other countries. They're as anxious to talk as we are.
Good. Nearly there.
Commence report.
Jenkins, 625, ABF Holby 1. This is the time and this is the place. Town removed, but no destruction apparent yet.
Report registered.
How long before next phase commence time?
Maximum 4 minutes.
End. Good. Just time to stroll to the cliff face and enjoy the view.
So sorry to keep you waiting. Been chatting with the chaps. You can stop pointing your rifle at him now, Private. I'm sure he's not going to run off anywhere.
Very good, sir.
Would you care for a cup of tea, Mr. Henderson? Well, sir, I'm ready. Private?
It's not for me, thank you, sir.
Right. Well, just the one question, and you can be on your way. Who was the second man?
Beg pardon, sir?
Who was the other man in the forest?
There was nobody else there, just him and me.
A sergeant saw you in the distance in the forest. He says there were 2 men being questioned, and one simply walked away.
Well, that would be daft, sir. I mean, what would be the sense of my letting someone walk away when I had a gun on them?
Exactly. That's what I want to find out. Right, Private, that's all for now. You may go.
Very good, sir.
Now, one other thing.
Sir?
If you see anyone in a civvy suit out there, it'll be one of mine. Tell him AP desires a cup of tea forthwith, would you?
Very good, sir.
Well, sit down, Mr. Henderson. There are questions to be answered.
No point in sitting. I'm not staying.
I'm afraid you are, so perhaps you'd like to...
You can't keep me against my will.
Mr. Henderson, not only can I keep you, but if I so wish, I can have you shot. I have total authority here on the Prime Minister's express instruction. Now, sit. Good. Perhaps you'll be kind enough to tell me what you were doing hanging around in the shrubbery at the edge of the town, with or without an accomplice.
I was alone. I broke through the cordon earlier, saw the town had disappeared, and... Well, I suppose I couldn't believe it. I had to come back and check it was true.
Oh, it's true enough. Quite fascinating, wouldn't you say?
You tell me what's fascinating about losing your family, Mr. whatever your name is. I mean, to you it might be a scientific curiosity. To me, it could be the end of all I hold dear.
The name is Smith. A.P. Smith. And you, Mr. Henderson, know in your bones, just as I do, that the town disappearing is not the end of the story.
I don't know what you mean.
Oh, don't you now? The loss of your family and the end of all you hold dear. But not one tear escapes your eye. Now, how do you explain that, Mr. Henderson? I'll explain it for you. Somewhere deep inside, you know that this is simply the start of the adventure, not the end. And who knows what might happen next?
And there will be darkness once more upon the face of the earth. Worlds will move. Oh, come on, what are you waiting for? Time to get on with it. Lightning played across the sky, and all waited with bated breath as the seconds ticked away. For who knew what was to happen next? I know! Do you hear me? I know! The lights go out once more! Ah!
So, there we have it. Blackout once more. I can't see you, but please don't move, Mr. Henderson. I think we're in for a little surprise.
What sort of surprise?
Wait and see. I can almost guarantee it'll happen in the next minute.
You're wrong. There's nothing. Absolutely nothing. Are you there, Mr. Smith? Mr. Smith?
Now.
Commence report.
Jenkins 625, ABF, Holby 1. Day 2. Henderson now in the hands of the authorities. Reversion completed. No destruction yet apparent.
Report registered.
And...
Care for a look through the binoculars, Mr. Henderson? Spot the difference, as it were?
I don't care for anything except getting in there and making sure my wife and kids are okay. Instead of which you drag me up the local hill to watch the dawn.
No rush, I'm sure. About whether Holby's going away again in a hurry. Here. Tell me whether you can spot anything different about your little town.
Looks pretty much as it ever did.
Hmm? You sure about that?
Yes. Hang on. There are no cars on the street. There's no traffic at all. That's crazy.
Anything else?
Oh, there's no TV aerials.
Quite. Now, wouldn't you say that was odd?
The town's completely surrounded. Checkpoints have been set up in case anyone tries to come through. Funny thing is, nobody is trying to come through. They seem quite content to get on with whatever they're doing inside there.
Thank you, Colonel.
Would you like me to send a patrol in, see what they're all getting up to?
No, I don't think so. In fact, I'm sure Mr. Henderson would like to pop off home now, make sure everything's all right, and perhaps be good enough to report back to us.
Something's wrong, isn't it? It's very wrong indeed.
I'm afraid so. But we're not going to know exactly what's wrong until we have a report from inside. Like to do that for us?
Right, everybody, let's have a little order. Thank you. Now, just to bring you all up to date. After the second power cut, which was fractionally shorter than the first, the boffins did finally manage to rig up the screens for an international heads of government meeting via satellite, the Super 60, as it'll come to be known. Each Prime Minister, head of government, what have you, was updated during the broadcast by a minister receiving the most recent reports from the site. Chivers here was keeping me up to date. Chivers, care to enlarge?
There is, in fact, very little that you don't already know. At the end of the blackout, the towns had all reappeared at their former sites.
During the conference, it was reported this had happened worldwide.
But where had the towns been?
Good question, but one I can't answer for the moment. But what I do know is that wherever they've been, it is potential bad news for our country and for the world, and we must act accordingly.
And do what?
Simply take the appropriate action. There will be a further satellite meeting of the Super 60 in approximately 2 hours. By that time, we should all have reports from inside the individual towns throughout the world. If the towns are not as they should be, at that point, we will decide on both the action to be taken and the precise time worldwide that the action will be taken.
You're going to blow them off the face of the earth, aren't you?
In a word, Freddie, if needs be, yes.
Well, here we are, Mr. Henderson. Ready to take a stroll through the barricades and find out what's going on in there?
Well, I've got to be honest, I'm scared.
Oh, think of it as a little adventure. I find it always helps me enormously.
Yeah, you don't understand.
Try telling me.
From here, I can see people I recognize strolling around as if they didn't have a care in the world. They're apparently totally oblivious to the fact that they're under siege, surrounded by thousands of soldiers with tanks. And how can that be possible, Mr. Smith?
The quicker you're underway, the sooner we'll have the answer.
Yeah. Well, I'll go through.
And do come back and report, Mr. Henderson. That could be quite important for the well-being of your hometown.
How come?
Just make sure you report back. Open up.
Sir. Mr. Smith?
Yes?
Can you see me?
Yes. You walked about 5 paces in, then turned to look at me, right?
That's right.
So why'd you ask?
Well, I've answered one of the questions already. I can't see you or the troops. All I can see is the view to the mountain. The only difference is that the only power line that exists on your side, going right over the brow, doesn't exist over here.
Oh. Well, good luck in your travels. Come back safe and soon. I'll be waiting for you.
Okay, you two? More cereal before I close up shop?
No thanks, Mum.
No thanks. Well, what happened last night? That noise? Oh, nothing. Just a nerve tremor. Right, time to grab your books and dial yourselves to school.
Oh, but we've got to say goodbye to Daddy first.
Well, he's obviously stayed up at the house with Uncle Mark for the night. School. You're going to be late.
We can dial ourselves up there to say bye-bye and then go to school direct.
Yes. Well, if he doesn't arrive in the transponder in the next couple of minutes, you can do that. But no being late.
Okay.
Hello? Anyone at home?
Good Lord.
Daddy's been walking again.
Daddy!
Oh, it's great to see you. Oh, thank God they're all right.
We were just going to dial ourselves up to see you and Uncle Mark.
You gonna what?
And then Mum said we could dial ourselves straight to school from there.
Hang on. Let's go and chat with Mummy. My kid, I can't tell you what a nightmare I've...
Hi, honey. How come you walked back? The office has been chasing you. Something to do with that earth tremor last night. Old man Venables teleported in on his way and said, could you get in there? What is it, Gary? Why are you looking at me like that?
You look stunning.
Yeah.
You're so funny.
Well, thank you very much, kind sir. If this is what a night away from home and walking does for you, you'll have to stay away more often.
No, I'm not kidding. Your hair, your complexion, you look 10 years younger than the last time I saw you, Kate. And your voice.
You all right, Gary? You look sort of peaky.
Well, no, I don't think I am all right.
Okay, kids, off to school.
Oh, no.
School.
Bye, Daddy. Bye, Daddy.
Bye, I'll see you this evening. What the hell is that they're getting into?
There's no need for that sort of language, Gary.
It's just a silly old transponder, Dad.
Off you go, the pair of you.
Bye.
No! They're starting to disappear!
You can't open the door, Gary!
Get them out!
You'll kill them all if you do that, Gary! You know they'll die if you open it, Gary! Stop it! Stop it!
They're gone. They're suddenly disappeared.
And arrived safe at school. What's got into you, Gary?
Why don't you go and let the Medibed check you over?
Huh?
You've obviously got a problem.
Medibed?
In the spare room. Just go upstairs and have a lie down. It'll tell you whether you need any treatment or you're just tired or...
Mother's in the spare room.
Gary, you know your mother decided to depart 3 years back. You were at her ending party with me and the children and all our friends. It was a terrific night. Best party ever, can't you remember?
Oh, no. Where did she depart to?
Euthanasia House. She's dead, Gary. Decided to end it all.
Oh, no, it's not true. She'd never kill herself.
It's true. What's got into you? You're acting like a crazy person. What's so bad about dying peacefully?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I am crazy. Different values. I've got some bad news for you, Kate.
Well, okay, let's have it. And if it explains your behavior, it'll be a great relief.
Well, I think it might. You see, I'm not your real husband. And my mother isn't dead.
What?
You are not my Kate. Oh, you look like her, a gorgeous version of her, come to that, but not my version.
Gary.
And I'm not your Gary. That's why I don't know anything about transponders, medibeds, anything. I somehow have changed places with your real husband.
You really aren't well, Gary. I'm going to dial a medic.
Wait. Can you tell me what a car is?
A what?
A car, a lorry, a train, a plane.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, maybe I am going crazy, but you've got to take my word for it. Though I look the part, I am not your real husband. And what I've got to do now is find out where he is.
You really mean it, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Well, if you're not my husband, he must still be up in the mountains with Uncle Mart.
Ah, who is Uncle Mart?
His real name's Jenkins. He's an old friend of Gary's.
Jenkins? What does he look like?
You know, that's really weird. I've never seen him. He comes to the door and Gary... Oh, that's really strange.
Well, maybe it's not as strange as you think. My wife's never seen Jenkins either. Okay. Who would Gary turn to for advice if he had a big problem?
Me?
Yeah, and after you?
Well, Venables is boss, I guess. He's sort of unshockable.
Now, how do I get to him?
You step in the transponder, dial 2419, your work number, and there you are.
Jenkins, 625 ABF, Holby 1. You hear?
Jenkins, 625 ABG, Holby 2. I hear.
Henderson 1 is on his way through.
Received and registered.
Yours?
Still detained by Smith.
So, it is my version who is the scribe.
It would appear so. End?
End. And the madness increased apace.
So now what have I got myself into? Hundreds of people sitting at desks in rows working at processors.
Gary, what are you hanging about there for? I want you now.
On my way.
Come and take a look at this.
Are you Venables?
What's got into you this morning? Big things are happening in the world. There's no time for fooling around. Here, look at this. It's just coming over the Quadrovision from Birmingham way.
I can't believe it.
Quite agree. That's an enormous number of troops they've got deployed there. Something big's definitely afoot.
They look like real people, tiny little figures climbing around a mountain inside a glass cube. That was really the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
It's just a stupid quadro box. It's why the troops are there that's worrying me. After last night's blackout, anything could have happened. But as usual, nothing's been reported. Are you okay? You look a bit white.
What do you do?
What do you mean, what do I do?
What's your job?
Same as your job, public information gathering.
Information gathering? Why?
So we can tell the people what the government's getting up to. Have a seat, Gary.
No, I'm really okay standing.
A seat, now. What exactly are you playing at?
Well, I think you'd better have a seat as well, Mr. Venables.
Huh?
You're in for a bit of a shock, I'm afraid.
Mr. Smith?
Yes?
There's a call for you, sir. London.
On my way.
The red one, sir.
Usually is. Oh, would that be tea you're making by any chance?
Yes, sir. Fancy a mug?
Couldn't think of anything nicer. White with no sugar, thank you. Hello. Oh, how nice of you to call, Chivers. Yes, everything's fine. You can tell the PM that our Mr. Henderson has popped home, and hopefully before too long we'll pop out again to tell us what exactly is going on in there. What? I see. But wouldn't you consider that action a little extreme, considering there's been no threat to life? No, of course, I realize it's not your decision, but... I see. Well, let's hope it's sorted out before the deadline's reached.
There we go, sir.
Oh, thank you.
That's quite a tale.
And you believe me?
No point in not believing you. Parallel worlds have always been considered a possibility. The problem is, where do you go from here? It would appear you're adrift in the wrong version of the world. How do we get you back?
That's not the problem. There's an easy route back for me, the transponder thing. Then home to this Gary's house, then I walk through the barriers the troops are set up, and I'm back in my world.
Is that what you intend to do?
No, I'm going to try to talk to my wife and children first, make sure they're all right, and if need be, take them back with me.
And how do you go about that?
Well, it would appear that your form of transportation hasn't suffered. You can still transpond between your version of inside and outside Holby. And that's where I think I'll find the other Gary.
How can I help?
Just tell me what number I dial on a transponder to get me as near as possible to the scene that's played out on that Quadrovision thing there.
You think that's something to do with this business?
I'd almost guarantee it. Look, you see the mountain? I mean, it's just outside Holby. The only difference is my version has a power line running up it.
A what?
No, it doesn't matter. Now, your Gary went up there last night with a man called Jenkins, someone who's visited him regularly over the years. I also went up the mountain with a man using that name.
And who is this Jenkins? And what's he got to do with what's been happening?
I don't know that yet, but I intend to find out. Can you help me get near there?
I can do better. A couple of weeks back, we discovered all the ministerial emergency codings. Chances are I can put you inside whatever temporary complex they've set up as a head office.
There you are.
Someone coming in on a transponder.
It's supposed to be close off to the outside. Stand by. It's either brass or an intruder.
Hello. How nice to see you both. Oh, is anyone in charge around here?
How did you get out your cell?
Huh? In a cell, was I?
You certainly were. And that's where you're going back to.
You see our problem, Mr. Henderson. If we allow you to go back and this story gets on the public information lines, there'll be an inordinate amount of panic in the streets of the real Holby.
Well, that's no excuse to hold me without charge, and you know it.
True, but who's to know?
Blimey! Oh, sorry, sir. It's just that this one turned up and we thought,
Hi, Gary. I don't believe it.
Well, I never. What a turn-up. Twin brother, perhaps?
I've never seen him in my life before. Except when you look in your mirror.
It appears we now have two Mr. Hendersons.
You'll be A.P. Smith, presumably.
Yes. How did you know?
Because your doppelganger is awaiting my return in a different version of this nightmare. So, if you'd like to take us somewhere slightly more pleasant, I could suggest a plan of action that might help move things forward a little.
And why not? Soda?
Sir?
Organise tea for 3 in the Colonel's office, would you?
We took a vote on the matter. Every country, no matter what size, having simply one vote, yes or no. Now, considering that every country in the world was taking part, the results came surprisingly quickly. There were no abstentions, and the decision was unanimous. All the towns and the populations within them will be destroyed by a contained and clean atomic explosion. There is quite simply no other option available to us. We don't know what these people are who've arrived to replace the originals, but the feeling is that they are an alien threat and must be destroyed before they can cause any irreparable damage.
Delightful. Right, fire away, Mr. Henderson, most recently arrived. What have you got to say for yourself?
Well, it's a question for Gary. How long have you known Jenkins? About 4 years now. He arrives on the same day and moves up to Hilltop House in the mountains for a week.
Same name.
Arrives from where? Oh, that's strange. I've got no idea. Same here. So what happens then? Well, I've got into the habit of dialing myself up there for an evening with him, help him carry his equipment. Do you know why? No, I don't. It just sort of become a habit. When I decide not to go, I feel very uncomfortable. Have you ever not gone? No. Me neither. Last night my wife didn't want me to go. Had a premonition something terrible would happen, but I had to go.
And your version?
When the blackout came, we were sitting having a drink. In the darkness, I heard him say, "The right night." And there was an incredible noise that lasted a minute or so.
What exactly is the point that you're trying to make about this, Mr. Jenkins?
I believe he is somehow connected with these happenings and should at least be spoken to find out what he knows.
Right. Send a team to Hilltop House on Highview Point and get the man you'll find there down here for questioning.
We've already checked the house.
Oh, I see.
And it's deserted.
Ah. Very good. The troops have been scouring the area all day. The house is apparently deserted.
Well, then I think it is important that I get back to my version of reality as soon as possible to get the other A.P. Smith searching for him.
I'm afraid that would be a hard one to oblige you.
Huh?
This is the most fascinating opportunity I've had for years of discussing how another culture has developed. I couldn't just let you slip out of my hands that quickly.
Well, let me tell you briefly how we've developed, Mr. Smith. It may help you to change your mind. We are a warlike world where everything that is alien is considered a threat. The most likely thing to happen, knowing what I do about my culture, is that the threat will simply be removed.
And how would they do that?
Probably by destroying the town along with its inhabitants. Wipe it off the face of the earth. The trouble is, it would be your town and your population they would be destroying, not mine.
And how would they perform such a brutal act?
Do you have atomic power?
But of course.
Do you have atomic weapons? That's funny. Oh, come on, AP, even you must admit that's a funny thought.
You're quite, yes, that's very amusing.
Of course we haven't got atomic weapons. They would be lethal. Well, we have, and they are.
Amazing.
Chances are, Mr. Smith, the weapons would be used if no other solution was forthcoming. I don't know what that would do to my version of Holby here, but as sure as hell I know what it would do to yours.
Point taken. Our facilities are at your disposal to get you back.
First, I want to visit my wife and mother, make sure they and the children are safe.
That is impossible. Your version of the town has a vacuum seal around it. Nothing can get in or out.
Well, then find out how to get me in and out, Mr. Smith. I don't leave till I've seen them.
There may be a way.
Sergeant! We've put a gap in the vacuum seal, but we can't hold it open for long. It's mayhem in there.
All right, gentlemen, in you go. Good luck. And don't forget, Mr. Henderson, once you've seen your wife, this is the only way out.
Sorry, she refused to come out of the town with you. Oh, it can't be helped. I can't really blame her anyway. I mean, in her present mood, it's probably a good thing. We should have warned her there were two of us. Well, she has a very, rich and colourful choice of language available to her. You mean she swore a lot? I suppose I do, really, yes. That's my world. People do. Problem? No. Somebody will be on the way into the office from a different transponder, fail-safe mechanism. It'll connect when the way is clear. That makes sense. Looking on the bright side, this'll all make a great book one day. Oh, you're right. I've dabbled in it. You? No, I can't put two words together. No, it's a good hobby. Mind you, your story's the better one. Maybe I'll write it for you. All we need to do is find the right title. Oh, what would you call this? Nightmare World would just about fit the bill. I've heard that somewhere recently. Where? No, I can't remember. But... Oh, no fuss. There's no copyright in titles. We're on the way. And here we are. That is a great way to get to the office. It beats traffic jams, hands down. I'll pop in to bring Venables up to date. Get him to try to find out what all the activity was about round the gate. Activity? No, I was just thinking out loud, something I noticed while we were coming out of town. Well, the concrete blockhouse. Yes, you noticed it too? Yeah, I wonder what they were up to. It looked like a guard post, but no window. If Venables doesn't know, he'll soon find out. Would you wait for me? No, I'll transpond back to your home and then I'll walk back out to my world from there. Well, tell Kate I'll be along soon. Yes, I'll do that. Hey, what number do I dial? 1415. Right. Gary? Yeah? It's been nice meeting you. Take care of yourself. You too.
Sir!
Yes?
Someone on the way to the gate, sir. I think it could be him.
Right.
I see. 10 minutes. Well, the bulk of the troops and transport have now cleared the area, and the last few hundred will be flown out over the next 5 minutes, so we should be well clear. Yes, I do realize the dangers of flying, but we're going to have to take the chance. Very good, sir. Yes, I'll do that as soon as we've cleared. You want me?
Colonel, I'd like you at the main gate, sir. I think it's your man coming through.
On my way.
You've lost me, Gary. Try it again.
Well, it's been niggling at me all the time I was with the other Gary. Something about A.P. Smith's behaviour when the three of us were together in the guardhouse. And suddenly, in the transponder coming back, I had it.
And it was?
Well, when Gary asked if we had atomic weapons, I laughed out loud at the thought. After I said how funny the thought was, A.P. also chuckled. But the more I think of it, the more I come to realise it was phony.
Phony?
I think he was just covering for the shock he'd had when Gary asked directly if we had atomic weapons. And the shock could only have been caused if we do have atomic weapons.
Oh, my.
So, well, working on from there, I come to the only conclusion possible. Our government not only have atomic weapons, they intend to use them. Well, they built a windowless concrete blockhouse at the gate of the town. The funnel of power from it, if it was a bomb, would take out every house in Holby.
Did you tell the other Gary?
No.
You're going to have to.
The troops have been through the mountains with a fine-tooth comb. If this Jenkins was there, he's gone now.
I promise you he is still there, and I think it's very important that we find him.
It's too late.
Well, what do you mean it's too late?
We're all leaving. The area's being cleared.
They're going to wipe it out, aren't they? There's over 150,000 people in there.
But they're not our people, Mr. Henderson.
Mr. Smith, another Mr. Henderson has arrived at the barrier.
Looks as though your doppelganger's paying you a visit. Shall we go and join him? Colonel, get those men onto a helicopter and out of here. There's only minutes to go.
What about you?
The little helicopter with a chap in the suit is mine. Now, don't worry about me. Just clear your men from the area.
Gary,
everybody aboard.
I had to come and warn you. Come through. No, I'll stay this side if it's all the same with you.
Good Lord, what an amazing likeness.
Bad news. My side's about to wipe out your version of Holby. It's okay. There's already an emergency transponder evacuation underway. With a bit of luck, the town will just about be cleared by now. Sadly, I can't say the same for your version. A.P. Smith was lying. It's been confirmed in the last few minutes that they're going to explode an atom bomb at the gates of the town.
I find it hard to believe that a namesake of mine would lie.
I'll get back to the transponder.
There's only about 6 minutes left. You better be sharp about it.
I'll see you, Gary. See you. And thanks for the warning.
Now, we really must pop in the helicopter and be on our way. Don't you care for a lift out of the danger zone?
Just to the top of the mountain.
You realize it'll be in blast range?
Yes, just drop me there, would you?
So be it. Anywhere on the mountain that you particularly have in mind?
Oh, there's a house at the very peak. No, look. There's Jenkins.
So he is. You were right after all.
Oh, could you drop me near him?
Well, a couple of 100 yards to the left, there's a fat dell. Will that do you?
That'll be fine.
Sorry I won't be able to stay to chat. We're within minutes of the blast.
How nice of you to join me in my lonely vigil, Mr. Henderson.
You knew it was me without looking.
Oh, yes. I know many things.
You know what happens now?
Yes, I also know what happens now.
And you're not afraid?
No.
Well, how come?
Because I know what happens now.
Hmm?
You only think you do.
So, but what happens?
The little dot you believe we will soon see in the sky carries death, yes?
Ah, an atomic missile, yes.
Supposing we don't see it.
You've lost me.
The pity you haven't got a torch with you, Mr. Henderson. Any second now, all would be explained.
Electricity will be gone again.
Worldwide. No warhead will fall on any town.
Is it the nightmare over?
Nearly. Within minutes you will see a miracle performed before your eyes down there.
Well, the town is coming back.
One goes, one returns. Status quo once more.
What's it all been about then?
I come from the future, Mr. Henderson. Not too far, maybe 300 years. It is a world of peace. Has been for a surprisingly long time. Mainly because of seeds sown in these difficult days, when the reality of parallel worlds was first discovered. Now my people can travel from one version of their world to another, as simply as you would take a bus. Health is no longer a problem. Wealth is no longer a god. And all children worldwide sleep with full bellies.
Sounds too good to be true.
Oh, it's true, right? But a blight is now on our land.
Blight?
Now let us sit. To help man in his search for understanding with his fellow man, it was decided to undertake a brave experiment. Various towns throughout the world agreed to be moved, en bloc, lock, stock and barrel, to other countries of their choice for a 6-month period. Holby to India, Geelong to Africa, Worcester to the Sudan, etc., etc.
Technology has reached the point you can do that?
Well, they thought so. I won't go into the detail of how it was to be done, but it was known that it would take a power surge of all available electrical energy for 1 minute and 27 seconds throughout the world. And this was agreed internationally. On the 13th of November, our calendar, the switch was pulled, as you say, but there was no blackout. Each town was simply left a wasteland, an atomic wasteland. And maybe 6-7 million people were missing, presumed dead.
What had gone wrong?
A good question. But no answers forthcoming. Until, one day, A scientist working on the project took his lunch break in an antiquarian bookshop and came across a book entitled Nightmare World.
Oh, that's what I heard it before. It was you.
When the time is right, you would have come to it yourself. The book told of how sometime in the 20th century, after a 1 minute 27 second power loss, a nightmare came to pass. And the book, written in the first person by one Gary Henderson, also gave us the answer as to what had happened and who on our project should be sent into the past to help put the matter right.
Mr. Jenkins.
Correct. And I was the only Jenkins on the team.
And that's why you've been visiting me on that specific night over the years.
Oh, to you it's years. To me it's only a month or so. Now, finally, we know where the experiment went wrong.
I still can't see it.
The handling of the power surge was careless. It reflected into the past rather than the present. So the atomic wastelands that now blight our world were not the result of the surge as we thought, but of some previous government's reaction to the presence of alien parallel towns in their midst.
And the solution?
All that was needed was to go back and stop the destruction, reverse the mistake, and our towns would be returned once more.
There is a problem in all this. I don't write the book.
That's impossible.
Oh, it's the other Gary who is going to write it.
But they don't have atomic... It is underway.
Shimmering, starting to disappear.
And gone. There will be no gap. Our engineers have learned from their mistakes. Look.
It's coming back again.
And your town, with its cars and aerials, is safely returned. And electrical power restored to the world.
Oh, no! The blockhouse has come with it.
What?
The blockhouse, look, at the town gates. It has an atomic bomb inside it.
Impossible. Yours is the only parallel world in this period using atomic weapons.
You're wrong. Gary has just warned me that their government is going to try to destroy alien towns using atomic weapons. Your engineers have brought the bomb through with the town.
No!
You must get the power switched off again.
I can't!
No! 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 Kate! Mother! Kids! No! Yes? Oh, it's you.
It's the 13th of November again.
Years really flown by.
They do, don't they?
You like to come in?
No. I'll wait by the car as usual, if it's all the same to you.
It's fine. The boot's open if you want to pop your gear in there.
I'll do that.
It won't be a minute. I'll just get my coat.
Yeah, there's good news, Mr. Henderson.
Yes?
This is definitely my last visit.
In Nightmare World by Wally K. Daly, Gary was played by James Lawrenson, Jenkins by Nigel Anthony, and A.P. Smith by Peter Jeffrey. Geoffrey Whitehead was the Prime Minister, Joe Dunlop, Venables, and Melinda Walker, Kate. Other parts were played by Nicholas Courtney, Ken Cumberledge, Christopher Good, Cara Kelly, Joe Kendall, Joanna Mackey, Ian Mickey, Dominic Rickards, Christopher Scott, Susan Sheridan, and John Warner. Technical presentation was by Keith Perrin, assisted by Sarah Fairburn and Miriam Akhtar. The production assistant was Jane Clairhugh.